Good afternoon. Welcome to the February 2025 Board Business Meeting. Welcome to my colleagues, MCPS staff, and community members who are joining us here today, and those who are watching this meeting via live stream. Now, let us first stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, please be seated. Okay, now I will ask my colleagues to introduce themselves and to establish a quorum. I know Ms. Vera-Oven is online. We'll start from those in the building first.
Good afternoon, Pranil Suvarna, student member of the board.
Good afternoon, Natalie Zimmerman, representing District 2.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes, Carlos Silvestre, school board member at large.
Good afternoon, Brenda Wolf, School District 5.
Good afternoon, Rita Montoya, board member at large.
Good afternoon, Laura Stewart, District 4.
Good afternoon, Julie Yang, District 3 and online.
Good afternoon, Grace Rivera-Oven, District 1.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Now, can we begin the meeting with the approval of the revised agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Ms. Stewart, thank you so much. That's unanimous. All right, thank you. Now, before we proceed with a very exciting meeting, I have an announcement. The board would like to announce that we are now accepting nomination for the prestigious award for distinguished service to public education. This award recognizes individuals, groups, and businesses that have a lasting impact on our public school system. Now, this year, the category include business partner, community partner, school service volunteer, and student service award, which honors current MCPS students. If you are interested in nominating an individual or business who has made a difference in our community, please visit our board's website to submit the nominations. The deadline is March 3rd, all right? So now let's move on to our next item. Dr. Taylor, any recognitions?
Thank you, Madam President. I have two recognitions, and for our very first one, we actually have some special guests in our audience, and at this time, I'd like our social workers, if you are present, to please stand to be recognized at this time. And if you're in the audience, please encourage our social workers by giving them a hearty round of applause. It is an absolute pleasure to bring this to the board's attention and a recommendation to the Board of Education to approve and designate the week of March 2nd through 8th, 2025 as National School Social Worker Week in Montgomery County Public Schools. And I'm going to read a truncated resolution for the board's consideration. Whereas the importance of school social work through the inclusion of school social work programs and services has been recognized in the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 and the Individuals with Disabilities Act, and whereas school social workers exceptionally are skilled in providing services to students who face serious challenges to school success, including disability, poverty, discrimination, abuse, neglect, mental illness, homelessness, bullying, familiar stressors, and other barriers to learning. And whereas it is appropriate that Montgomery County Public Schools recognize the critical role of school social workers, now therefore be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools hereby proclaim March 2nd through the 8th, 2025 as National School Social Worker Week in Montgomery County Public Schools, and we recommend the observance of all of our school communities.
May I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Yes, that's unanimous.
There's a lot of special occasions that we recognize in MCPS, and this one is particularly special because of our elected board. The adult board members are all female. And so it gives me great joy to recognize the leadership of this female board and other female contributors to our absolutely fantastic community by recommending to the Board of Education that we approve Women's History Month. And I'll have a truncated resolution for the board's consideration. Whereas women around the world have celebrated the economic, political, and social accomplishments of women since March 9th, 1911, with the birth of International Women's Day, and whereas Women's History Week was first celebrated in California in 1978, which eventually led the United States of America to formally establish March as Women's History Month in 1987, and whereas women have overcome barriers that aim to block their full participation in society, such as access to higher education, political participation, political offices, professions in science, employment leadership, and sports, and whereas women continue to fight for equal rights, equal pay, and self-determination, and whereas the work of women, whether it is focused inside or outside the home, fundamentally contribute to the development of the United States of America, now therefore be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Schools hereby declare the month of March 2025 to be Women's History Month. And may it further be resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Education and Superintendent of Schools request staff, schools, and the community to observe the month of March 2025 as Women's History Month, and to acknowledge the accomplishments and contributions of women to our country, our state, and Montgomery County.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. And I know that March 8th is International Women's Day, too. May I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. We are going to move to our agenda item 4, and I want to once again thank the social workers who are here today to represent your group. Thank you. Thank you for your work for the system. Yeah. Next is public comment. While the board encouraged public's input on policy, program, and practices, and will consider the comments received today, it is not our practice during its business meetings to respond to questions, provide comments, or take action on the issues raised. This is a public meeting, and the board expects the conduct of all speakers and members of the audience to be within the bounds of proper etiquette. Inappropriate personal remarks, rude retorts, or other such behavior is out of order and will not be tolerated. Those who demonstrate disruptive or disrespectful behavior during public comments may be asked to leave the room. In addition, public comment is not the proper avenue to address the specific student or employee matters. Such matters should be directed through the complaint or appeal process. Each speaker has 2 minutes to deliver comments. When your name is called, press the flag button and speak clearly into the microphone. A yellow light and a single beep indicate you have 30 seconds remaining. A red light and a repeating beep signals that time has expired. Once you have finished speaking, press the same button to turn off the microphone. And following the live testimony, we will play audio and video testimonies. Copies of the testimony are posted with other materials for the meeting on board docs. Today, we have 15 people sign up to testify. I'm going to call the first 6 to proceed to come to the front table. First one, Dr. Handy, Christine Handy, Charlene Pruitt from SEIU, Bestie Tao, Glenn Miller, Ronnie Peel, and Annabella Almeida. Please come to the front. Dr. Handy, you may begin.
I come before you with deep concern regarding the current budget situation and the processes, or lack thereof, that have shaped its development. We recognize the financial challenges facing our school system and the tough decisions that must be made, but we must also acknowledge the reality of those impacted by these choices. While we know that the budget is tight, we see the elevation of some positions to higher levels, the creation of new executive leadership roles, and the elimination of positions that provide critical support to our schools, students, and families. These are difficult times in our country, and many of our members never imagined that their jobs would be in jeopardy. Today, they feel just as uncertain as many government workers, unsure of where they will work next year or what their future holds. Let me be clear, no one has been laid off, terminated, or offered a buyout. However, the anxiety amongst our members due to the lack of clarity is undeniable. Our primary concern remains the process. Positions have been changed without thorough study or transparent justification. We have yet to see finalized job descriptions for many of these newly created positions. How were these positions classified before their job descriptions were even created? How can we make informed decisions about organizational restructuring without fully understanding the scope and responsibility of these new roles? Furthermore, financial strain is inevitable. Salaries will be frozen amid rising inflation, creating hardship for our employees with families, children in college, mortgages, and many other financial responsibilities. These are real people, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. As we move forward, we ask for transparent, data-informed, and equitable processes. We ask that decisions about job classifications and reorganization be made with consistent transparency, fairness, and follow our negotiated agreement. Above all, we ask that we do right by those who have dedicated their lives and careers to serving the students, families, and community of Montgomery County Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Colleen.
Carlene.
Yes. I'm saying is that, how do you say your last name?
Butt Pruitt.
Butt Pruitt.
Yes, ma'am.
So please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board and Dr. Taylor. My name is Carlene Butt Pruitt, and I'm here today to speak about the impact of recent budget decisions, specifically the cuts to 4 important support professional positions. As Executive Vice President of SEIU Local 500, representing support professionals who make up 40% of your workforce in MCPS, I want to highlight how cuts will affect both staff and the quality of the services we provide. First, the support professional staffing specialists who have intimate knowledge of the work completed by more than 400 support professional job classifications. They screened over 100,000 candidates last year, ensuring that only the most qualified applicants were moved to hiring managers. The proposed budget cut replaces them with staffing coordinators who are required to have advanced professional teaching certification and administrative one endorsement. I ask, how does having an advanced professional teaching certification enable you to hire a glazer or an IT systems engineer or a central production food mechanic? Secondly, the security specialist position, created in 2022 to address the safety needs of elementary schools and locations with limited security staff. The budget replacement strategy is to align elementary schools under the cluster security coordinators who will be responsible for up to 40 schools. These specialists underwent a reclassification study in 2023. Last summer, they received notification that they were expected to continue working at a higher level this entire year without the 2-grade increase that was promised beginning July 1, 2025. Instead of paying them for their positions have been eliminated. This shift refocuses support for students and undermines the security of our elementary school students. Third, the equity training specialist created in 2012 to foster inclusive workforce, which is being eliminated. These positions work alongside instructional specialists to directly impact staff, students, and community. Replacing them with instructional specialists removes unique perspectives of support professionals and signals a lack of respect. Finally, the parent community coordinator position being reduced, impacting the support available to families speaking 7 different languages. Last year, they supported 1,000 families.
Thank you so much. Okay, next, Bessie Tao, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, President Yang, members of the Board of Education and staff. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify at this meeting regarding the Away All Day cell phone pilot. My name is Betsy Tao, and I'm the parent of 2 girls attending MCPS schools, Bell Elementary and Julius West Middle. I am strongly in favor of MCPS moving to a consistently enforced away all-day policy so that our children from K through 12 will have a distraction-free learning environment that is so critical during these key years of mental, emotional, and social development. To be clear, this should be a bell-to-bell ban on personal mobile devices, unlike the more lax policy currently in place at most middle and high schools in our county. I became aware of the smartphone problem through a good friend who was a college professor. He regularly complained about how the current generation of students could barely finish 40 pages of reading a week and how much they struggled to write well and think critically. I was fascinated by these complaints because I wanted my own children to grow up to be avid readers. I strongly believe that a love of reading is the foundation of academic success, measured by the ability to engage in deep learning, understand and grasp abstract concepts, and to think critically. Even more importantly, I feel strongly that reading helps us to develop a rich inner life and compassion for others. The development of these critical abilities is being severely undermined by excessive smartphone use, especially by students who were given smartphones at a young age. The author Jonathan Haidt describes this as the great rewiring of childhood, referring to the generation that came of age with smartphones in their hands. This rewiring, literally taking place inside the developing brains of children, especially between the ages of 9 to 15, has led to an alarming rise in mental health problems and detrimental academic outcomes. The negative effects of a screen-based childhood are well documented, and I don't have time to describe them in detail here, but I urge each of you to read Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, if you haven't already. I'm empathetic to concerns that some parents have about not being able to reach their children during the school day, especially those who have special needs, and I believe waivers should be available. And skipping ahead to the end, I hope that MCPS will follow behind other jurisdictions in moving towards this, and our children's futures depend on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Glenn Miller.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Glenn Miller, and I'm the lead teacher of the Curriculum for Agriculture Science Education, or CASE, at Sherwood High School. I appreciate the board's recognition of CASE's value, but I must challenge the idea that MCPS made a genuine effort to support its success. Over the past 4 years, despite my repeated advocacy, MCPS has failed to develop a vision for growing CASE. I challenge any MCPS official to provide concrete evidence of steps taken to remove barriers and increase enrollment. Sustainable programs don't grow on their own. They require investment, outreach, and long-term commitment. Only this year did MCPS expand access beyond the Sherwood cluster, leading to the highest enrollment yet. If that small change made a difference, imagine what real investment, promotion, transportation assistance, and better marketing could achieve. At a time when the ag industry faces a workforce shortages, eliminating CASE is short-sighted. The USDA projects nearly 60,000 ag-related jobs go unfilled each year due to lack of qualified graduates. Programs like CASE expose students to careers in sustainable farming, food production, and environmental science, fields critical to our economy and ecology. Furthermore, students who have already committed 1 or 2 years to CASE now have no option to continue unless they switch schools, something they have no desire to do. MCPS is abandoning these students mid-pathway, disrupting their educational and career goals. Rather than cutting CASE, I urge MCPS to sit down with me and explore real solutions to strengthening enrollment. If MCPS truly values career and technical education, it must foster it, not abandon it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ronnie Peel.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, board members, Dr. Taylor, colleagues. I'm Rodney Peel, Vice President for Advocacy for MCC-PTA. The MCC-PTA advocacy priorities are attached to my written testimony, and I wanted to highlight several of them today. You'll see that one of our priorities is improved enforcement of the mobile phone policy. We're excited to learn the early results of the pilot today, and we look forward to additional advocacy and engagement in the months ahead. I used to say that everything bad at school happened at recess or in the bathrooms. Now I think many of the bad things happen on mobile phones or in front of mobile phone cameras. And to reduce mobile phone use at school and better enforce mobile phone policies, we also prioritize the need to help families and students to have better understanding of the specific harms of their device use and be better equipped with tools and techniques to reduce those digital distractions at school and home, including the widespread harm of inadequate sleep. Another topic of considerable controversy is school boundaries. Here we prioritized information and process for the new boundary studies, including the need for stakeholder input in programming decisions. And we need the data, including transportation, time, and costs, to help evaluate potential solutions so that families affected by boundary or program changes have time and opportunity to provide feedback. And for programs, we prioritized clearer selection policies and resource allocations, including healthy bell times for equitable and accountable access to school and countywide programs, extracurricular activities, and enriched and accelerated courses. We also prioritized smaller class sizes. You heard a lot about that last month. We know there are budget challenges, so we appreciate the attention to long-term budget planning, and we prioritized a multi-year budget roadmap for curricula, as well as timely public evaluations of the programs and pilots. There's more in my written testimony. We look forward to talking with you more about those next time.
Thank you. Annabella Almeida.
Yes. Good afternoon, Dr. Taylor and members of the board. My name is Annabella Almeida, and I have been working for MCPS for 21 years. For the past 8 years, I have worked as a parent community coordinator providing language-specific services. Our group consists of 53 professionals. We are the most diverse group in terms of culture and language, serving all students, most critically, the most diverse, multicultural, and vulnerable segment of our school population, our special education and English language learners. We are in schools daily supporting families and staff with attendance issues, academic concerns, the social emotional well-being of students, and a myriad of obstacles families may be facing. We also create meaningful workshops and support organizing events to promote opportunities for learning and family engagement. As central office PCCs, we are the bridge between the families and the school community. PCCs are the facilitators of communication and understanding. In recognition of the needs and diversity of our school population, MCPS wisely recognized the need to provide information and service in Chinese, Vietnamese, Amharic, French, Korean, Spanish, and in Portuguese. Language-specific services are provided by our system-wide PCCs. As the Portuguese-speaking system-wide PCC, I serve all 211 schools as needed. Requests for services come from schools, but also by word of mouth. Using the language line or Google Translate does not replace human contact and outreach. System-wide language-specific work by PCCs is critical in promoting equity, communication, and family engagement. Decisions have been made to remove PCCs from central office and to no longer provide system-wide services. There is no foundation for this decision, considering that they are part of a role of current PCCs. In other words, they're not justifiable as affecting the budget. Currently, our most vulnerable families face a myriad of obstacles. Taking away the support they rely on is unconscionable. Over the last few weeks, we have heard repeatedly about sacrifice. These decisions are a significant and impactful sacrifice to our families.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. I'm going to call the next 6 to come to the front. Megan Stone, Justin Fontroyd, Samira Hussein, Rachel Bonas, Sterling High, and Ariana Ali Pratham. Ms. Stone, you may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Megan Stone, and I'm the proud parent of a Whitman High School student enrolled in its Leadership Academy for Social Justice Lottery program. I previously served as the president of Nobel Peace Prize laureate Malala Yousafzai's foundation, the Malala Fund. So after that very demanding global work, I'm so happy to come before you to testify about a very solvable problem. Just 1 or 2 buses. I'm here because my own son takes an MCPS school bus to school every day, but there's over 30 working families in the same program that don't have any school transportation of any kind. The impacted families and students were here today to ask for your help because this lack of bus service for out-of-boundary lottery students across the county is now really just a practical barrier to making this program accessible as a school choice. Working families in the program are being forced to spend over $600 a month on gas. And some students spend more than 2 hours a day getting to and from school each direction. They're having really serious public transportation safety issues as minors. We're talking about sexual harassment, physical threats, intoxicated passengers. They have to wake up hours earlier than other students. They miss sports and extracurricular activities. There's real harm happening here to these students. Look, we know that Whitman is one of the top schools in the county and even in the state, something to be really proud of. But the reality is the median home value in the Whitman cluster right now is over $1.1 million, and the average income is over $191,000 a year, right? So is that accessible? As a disabled person, I know how programs may earnestly really intend to be accessible, but then when you try to access them, they practically aren't. There's real barriers, like transportation. So historically, MCPS has funded this kind of transportation for lottery programs. We'd like to ask the board to ask the CFO to look into FY25 funding, to find funding to run just 1 or 2 buses on dedicated routes, or even just pick up at a couple schools across the county to bring these students to school every day. It really won't be inclusive or equitable until every student has a chance to get a bus to school. Thanks so much for your attention today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Justin Fondroy.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Fontroy. I am a proud computer science teacher at Argyle Magnet Middle School, having worked there for all 12 years of my teaching career. I'm here representing the staff at our school and the students we serve to share our thoughts on the urgent need for a new school building for our students to prioritize the safety, high-quality air, and ample space for effective learning. Air quality is a significant concern. The school was built with an open floor plan, but as walls were added over time, the HVAC system was left unchanged, rendering it ineffective. We've witnessed excessively high room temperatures and CO2 levels frequently over the 1,200 parts per million threshold, negatively impacting the health and attendance of students and staff. As a community school, Argyle should be the flagship campus in the community. Instead, it's a building plagued with issues, including a gym situated above 6 active classrooms, loud noise distracting during learning, a health room that is not ADA compliant and health responders struggling to navigate its narrow entrance, electrical systems under strain causing frequent power outages in classrooms due to overloaded circuits, door locks that don't function properly for weeks, and all the safety issues that go along with that, and narrow hallways and stairwells that are crowded and unsafe, not to list many more things. Argyle is one of the oldest buildings in the MCPS system, originally created in 1971. The school was designed for a capacity of 600, yet we are currently accommodating 860. The last major renovation took place in 1993, and while some bathrooms were updated to meet ADA standards in the summer of 2021, we actually lost bathroom capacity in that process. Had Argyle remained on the original list for reconstruction, our improvements will be happening this year. Instead, we received a roof repair completed in 2022, which is actually more expensive than the cost of a new building, yet it continues to leak and cause other problems. And to conclude, I'd like to highlight the equity issue. Although MCPS strives for equitable solutions, Argyle serves one of the lowest socioeconomic areas within the district. Will such student learning conditions be acceptable in other more affluent areas of the district? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Samira Hussein.
Dr. Taylor, Ms. Yang, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Samira Hussein, and I am a member of the Arab Americans of Montgomery County. Thanks to the board members, teachers, and staff who attended last night's educational event at the Islamic Center of Maryland. We miss the rest of you. Congratulations to Ms. Brenda Wolf on her well-deserved acknowledgement during the Black History Month. We're very proud of your accomplishments and wish you the best and more success. All students' lives are sacred and should be protected in schools, at home, and in public spaces. We are unsure what the future holds because we're receiving different news every day. But locally, we should be able to control somehow. We all heard about the Miami shooting of the 2 men because the perpetrators thinking they were Palestinians. Well, the fact is both men were Jewish Israelis and the criminal himself was Jewish as well. So this is very terrifying. Such people just take matters into their hands based on their assumption. Another very terrifying story that I read this morning that really changed my whole topic for today, the story of Jocelyn Rojo Carranza, a sixth grader from Texas who took her own life due to bullying and harassment from her peers, threatening to call ICE to deport her parents and she will be left all alone. We know Jocelyn is not going to be the last one to receive the threat. With the holy month of Ramadan starting on March 1st, many Muslim students will be observing this month. Accommodations may be necessary for those who are fasting. A full explanation is attached to make it easier for everyone, for teachers and everyone else, how to identify and how to support the students. And for teachers, if they want anything, they can always ask. And thank you for your services and for all you do for our children.
Thank you. Rachel Bonas.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Rachel Bonas, and I am a member of the Montgomery County Community Action Board, serving as a representative to the Head Start Parent Policy Council. I am here on behalf of both groups to share our testimony pertaining to early care and education. I want to start by thanking the Board of Education for your ongoing commitment to early childhood education. We have truly appreciated the 60-year partnership between the Community Action Agency, the grantee for Head Start, and Montgomery County Public Schools, the delegate for the program. We want to speak to you today during this time of great uncertainty when so many of our neighbors are fearful and concerned about the future. Parents are expressing anxiety and are fearful about being separated from their children, resulting in low attendance at certain schools. We know that in the coming months and years, the board will need to make many difficult decisions. During all of this, we ask that you not lose sight of the incredible significance of early childhood education. Early childhood education contributes to brain development, strengthens bonds with parents, and establishes a solid foundation and relationship with MCPS for years to come. ECE also helps children learn foundational concepts and become familiar with school routines so that they are ready for kindergarten. We ask that you maintain your commitment serving 3- and 4-year-olds in full-day classes, which is for working parents' need and wraparound services that address many boundaries. And I will skip forward just to hit the important points. Also, for the next year and years to come, both the Community Action Board and the Head Start Parent Policy Council remain committed to implementing a mixed delivery system in the county in order for private child care providers to fully participate in the pre-K services in the county throughout. You must ensure that there is a clear and realistic path to this certification for private child care teachers. Please see our written testimony for your viewing. Thank you.
Thank you. Sterling High.
Good afternoon. Public education is meant to be the great equalizer, ensuring every student has the opportunity to learn and succeed. For a few years, Montgomery County made real progress in fulfilling that promise by offering a comprehensive virtual school for students long marginalized by traditional education. But today, that opportunity is gone, leaving those who need virtual access with limited, isolating options. MCPS has reopened a gap it once worked to close, but it has the power to fix it again. Students needing a virtual school are accounted for in the blueprint, the state budget, and county funding. Yet in the MCPS budget, they are a discretionary line item or missing entirely when they were forced out of the system. They are only given access to programs that further isolate them and limit their educational opportunities. Does this reflect the values of a school system committed to serving all students? Students who need a virtual school are just as much a part of Montgomery County as those who attend in person. This should not be a question of one group versus another because our system exists to educate all students, and our budget must reflect that guiding principle. The adage, show me your budget and I'll show you your values, is ever true. But for the kids that thrive or need a virtual environment, this budget shows them that they and their education is either less valuable than in-person students or not even worth a line item at all. I want to end by showing the last yearbook that the Virtual Academy had. It provides insight into the rich educational experience and community that these children were given by this system, many for the first time. This yearbook was a tangible example to these kids that their system valued them, that their needs were seen and met, that they were an integral part of this community. But this year, hundreds of these students, even those within the system still, won't exist in any yearbook because their education, their memories, their futures have been devalued by this system.
These students deserve to fully participate in our school system once again by having access to a virtual school with a local community that they are a part of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ariana, you can go ahead.
Good evening, members. My name is Ariana Lee Pradhan, and I'm a freshman at Walt Whitman High School, and I'm also part of the LASJ program, and I came in as a lottery student. Today, I'm here to talk to you about getting transportation services for these students at Whitman. We understand that you've been busy with other district-wide issues, but this is equally important in terms of the safety and well-being of our students. We're here tonight because despite our petitions, emails, and direct conversations with the board, no action has been taken to address a critical barrier to equitable access. Students commute hours each day using public transportation, often facing unsafe conditions. Many have reported being harassed, stranded due to unreliable buses, or stuck in overcrowded metro cars. Some have even feared for their safety after encounters with intoxicated or aggressive individuals. These are not hypothetical concerns, they are real experiences that our students have faced. Beyond safety, the financial burden is also very significant. Some families pay over $1,000 a year just to use the metro car, while others struggle to coordinate carpools, often impacting their own work schedules. The long commute also limits students' ability to participate in extracurricular activities, complete homework, and maintain their well-being. If you're trying to take an AP or honors level class, you're going to have hours of homework, but if you're taking hours to get home, how are you going to have time to complete those hours of homework? MCPS has made a commitment to equity, safety, and student well-being, but without transportation, LASJ cannot truly be an accessible program. Other countywide programs like Blair's Magnet receive transportation support. Why not LASJ? Tonight, we ask for your action. We propose MCPS establish bus stops at a few key locations and ensure that transportation is safe, efficient, and accessible to all LASJ students. We believe in the board's commitment to equity, and now we urge you to uphold it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to call the next three to come forward. It is Anita Keifu, Alexis Bett, and Olivia Kushida. Please come forward. Anita, you can begin.
Good evening. My name is Anita Kafu, and I am a freshman currently attending Walt Whitman High School. I am one of the many lottery students who attend the Leadership and Social Justice Academy. I, like my other peers, am one who struggles with transportation due to my major distance from Whitman. I am currently doing a carpool with two other LASJ students who live near the same area as me. Recently, there's been an all-time low in temperatures hitting the area as well as inclement weather. Standing for extended periods of time, waiting outside for a bus is not safe or sustainable. This issue is going to be relevant for the coming years, as many students enter the program and could ultimately be a factor that stops students from taking advantage of this opportunity. This is a topic Walt Whitman has been discussing for a very long time. When LASJ was first being opened to the whole county, the first topic of discussion was transportation. Many students, such as myself, cannot attend the program due to the lack of transportation offered. Overall, this is an issue that affects many families. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Alexis?
Good afternoon. My name is Alexis Bett, and I'm also a ninth grader at Walt Whitman High School. I'm also an active member of the Leadership and Social Justice Academy, LASJ. I was fortunate to attend a school as resourceful and as diverse as Walt Whitman through the LASJ Lottery Program. However, while this opportunity has been invaluable, the challenge of getting to school remains a significant obstacle for many students like me. Several students endure long commutes and spend hundreds of dollars on gas just to access the education we were promised. I'm one of those students. My daily commute from Damascus takes around 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic and weather conditions. Damascus, which is one of the highest elevation points in Montgomery County, experiences harsher weather than areas like Bethesda, making the journey even more difficult. Beyond the transportation challenges, attending Whitman has opened my eyes to a new community, one enriched in diversity, resources, and representation. I've witnessed greater students' participation and engaged students in a sense of belonging that I did not experience in my previous school. However, this opportunity should not be limited to those who can afford the commute or can endure the drive. I am calling for buses for the LASJ students to ensure that this program is accessible to everyone, not just to those who means to get here. Equal opportunity should come with equal access. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Olivia, go ahead.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. My name is Olivia Kushida, and I am one of the lottery-chosen students in the LESJ program. I live in Damascus, and it is a very far drive to Bethesda as we're coming from the north of the county. My parents personally fear way too much to allow me to take the metro, considering the fact that it would take over 2 hours. My mother uses her own lunch break in order to pick me up from school. This issue is not only negatively impacting the students, but also the parents and guardians that do their part as well. Not only that, but the cost of gas and daily transportation overall impacts my parents very much. Although my personal experience may not seem very relevant to you, I'm speaking and representing for all LESJ students, especially the students that live outside of Bethesda. We believe that there is funding that can be found in the FY25 budget, as the superintendent asked at the last board meeting for a $4.7 million supplemental appropriation for this school year to make existing buses green. This, of course, is a good cause, but we feel that we as a community should be focusing on making sure all students have buses to get to school before we upgrade existing ones. Transportation is a critical barrier now, so we would appreciate it if we had funding in FY25 and FY26 for long-term program success. Please approve our request. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one video testimony. Can the TV play the video testimony?
My name is Jeremy Joseph, and I'm the proud parent of 2 MCPS students, including a freshman at Walt Whitman High School. I support in the strongest possible terms a robust district-wide phone-free education, an away all-day policy that covers phones, personal laptops, tablets, earbuds, and other personal electronic devices from bell to bell, including lunch and recess. Very narrow exceptions make sense. Enforcement is absolutely imperative. Teachers and administrators should not be individually liable for phones that they confiscate in violation when students violate the policy. And schools should improve communication to eliminate the perceived need for phones and the need to contact students during the day. Quality education at MCPS reflects smart, future-focused choices that prior leaders have made to promote long-term benefits. You have a generational opportunity to make similar smart, future-focused choices to create phone-free schools. Continued success in Montgomery County is not a given. Other districts have done this. The Los Angeles County Unified School District went phone-free officially on Tuesday. A district with 3 times the number of students and double the number of economically disadvantaged students is Montgomery County. No phones for those 450,000 students all day, including lunch. Let me tell you firsthand what I have seen at Walt Whitman High School. Phones are supposed to be put in pouches each class. Kids spend 5 minutes at the start and 5 minutes at the end of each period putting their phones away. That's 22% of the instructional time spent dealing with phones. That could be solved when the kids walk in and when the kids leave school, not classroom. Having the phones be available during passing periods does not make sense and is a waste of time. Teachers don't bother policing known offenders. Kids wear earbuds during instructional time, and there's fights, oh so many fights, because of the phones. Please make the right choice and make our schools phone-free all day, including lunch. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last public comment we have. I'm going to turn to my colleagues to see if anyone has comments or questions. I'm going to start from my left-hand side.
I'll come back on the second round.
Okay. All right, Ms. Montoya.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for being here today. It is really, really cold outside. I'm sure there's a lot of other places you could be. We have a lot of staff here who came after school, teachers who finished teaching for the day, and then they headed over here to make sure that their voice was heard for their schools, and I appreciate that. Also to our students, you guys had a long day at school. We have students here who just testified about traveling for a very long time to get to their programs at their schools, and then they came over here after school to again use their voice to help advocate for themselves and their fellow students, and I really appreciate all of you for being here today. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart?
Sure. I just wanted to follow up on Argyle's testimony, especially about the electrical problems and the door locks, because I feel like maybe that's something we could help with sooner than later. Some of the other issues are more long-term problems, and we can have that discussion during CIP. But thank you also for coming out here, and I appreciated hearing about the students, their actual experience in the program, and that helps us make better decisions. So thank you.
Ms. Savannah? Mr. Savannah.
Yes, thank you. I want to say again, thank you to the students for coming out. We appreciate your testimony, and if we can just have board staff maybe follow up to kind of explain what the policies are around transportation, and then again, continue to work on that. Thank you.
Okay, I have a data request. We hear a testimony from Ms. Bonas about early childhood programs and attendance issues. I know that I have requested data for our other grade level, elementary, middle, and high. So far, we don't see great attendance change in those level of schools. So I would like to request data for our early childhood programs. Thank you. Okay, and then seeing no other lights, this concludes our public comment section for today. The board's next business meeting is Tuesday, March 18. Online sign-up for public comment will open on Tuesday, March 11 at 6 p.m. In addition to online sign-ups, same-day in-person sign-ups are permitted when space allows, with unallocated slots filled on a first-come, first-served basis. To sign up in person, please check in at least 20 minutes before the start of the open session. In-person sign-ups will close 15 minutes before public comment begins or when all slots are filled. Additional information regarding upcoming meeting can be found on the board's website. All right, we're going to move to our next item. Item is consent item 5.1 and 5.7. Are there any consent items board member will request to be pulled for clarification at the moment? Yes, Mr. Savannah.
I think it was just 5.1 and 5.7 to be approved, correct?
5.1.
Or not to be approved, to be discussed, to be pulled for discussion.
So 5.1, and is there another number to be pulled, Ms. Stewart?
I also had 5.1. Thank you.
5.1. Any other number to be pulled? Okay. So may I have a motion to move the rest, 5.2 to 5.7 in block?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Okay, about 5.1. Ms. Stewart, what's your question?
Sorry. Hello. I just think it would be good to go over what this contract actually does. And I know it's something that we've talked about for the last year. So if we could just get a little clarity on what the money's for. Thank you.
All right. Please introduce yourself first.
Sure. Hi, good afternoon. Adnan Mamoun, Deputy Chief of Facilities. So for the assessment contract, this is going to be a contract that allows the vendor to assess all the physical conditions of every single one of our schools. We wanted to start with the 50, which is what the resolution talks about. And then, so that would allow us to get those data back in time for our next CIP submission. And then obviously we would like to continue with the vendor for the remainder of the other facilities for the next, between this summer and next summer.
And those 50 will be chosen how?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We're actually, we have a draft list. We're checking multiple data points to select the first 50. So there are certain things that we already have. The Maryland State also does the assessment. So they have their data. So we're kind of looking at it against their numbers, as well as we also have the study that was done 6 years ago. So we're comparing those two data as well as also reviewing our history of maintenance and other issues for those facilities. So we're finalizing that list, and we're happy to share that with the board once we have that 50 chosen in the next over the next week or so.
And my last question is, will the vendor provide any software or any reporting mechanisms for you as part of this?
Yes, that is part of the part of their contract. Correct.
Does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
may I have a motion to move?
One more
Oh, you have
question.
one more question?
All right, so just for the students who are watching, right, who maybe say, well, my school has this issue or my school has that issue, and they're saying, well, MCPS isn't doing anything about it. So what this contract would do in certain cases for schools like throughout time would be to kind of take a list of what the things that we need to improve on that school are, and to kind of give us that sort of detailed sort of breakdown, so we know which schools we need to start moving maintenance forward on immediately, and how to sort of get that maintenance effort moved forward. Correct?
That is correct. So yes, we looked at the sample reports that was provided by the vendor, and one of the reasons we actually are recommending this vendor is their report is extremely detailed. They talk about the immediate needs, as well as it lays out a short-term, mid-term, and long-term plan, which really is going to help us create that plan of things that we need to address over a certain period of time. So yes.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Ms. Silvestri?
Yes. How often does this assessment need to be done? I mean, I know in my board tenure 6 years ago, we went through an assessment, and now we're doing another one. So when can we expect another one, or what is the regularity of them?
Yeah, so the industry standard is to assess every facility somewhere between every 4 to 6 years. So typically how most organizations with large number of facilities would do is they would select a certain percentage. So if it's 20%, so every 5 years, the facilities get reassessed. So right now we're trying to get the baseline for all of our facilities first over the next, between now and summer of 2026. And then we also have an extension, that we have talked to the vendor about in getting them, future contracts to come back and start reassessing over an interval.
Okay, so we haven't done that ongoing assessment over the last couple of years, but we're restarting that process now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam President. One more thing that I think is particularly important, and even though we're a little off topic, is planning for your next capital improvement plan adjustment. And so this study also, in addition to identifying short-term needs in each of our buildings, will also help us rank priorities to make a recommendation to the board for some of the bigger projects that need to come along in the next decade, and planning ahead for that. One of the dangers of not having that ongoing cycle and not tackling this one piece at a time over the last several years is that we really don't have a good, clear picture of where our facilities are, and to have an ongoing cycle of when we can expect that is really one of the challenges for facilities planning. So even though we saw one school present today, and their needs may be very real, and I have no doubt that they are, putting that into context with other schools is really the next part of this process, and where they are in relation to some of the other schools, so that we can plan accordingly.
Thank you. Mr. Silvana?
So to be clear one more time, this would be this first 50 that we're kind of looking at. We would want to do this every year, like maybe another set of 50 schools, which are different than the first, and on a 5-year cycle, the 50 schools that we start with come back. Sorry, I think maybe I explained that kind of roundabout. But.
Yeah, so let me try to explain. So our goal with this contract is to reassess all of our buildings. We're starting with the 50 because we wanted to kind of get the read on some of the worst facilities that we have in our portfolio in a timely manner, so we could use that, as Dr. Taylor already mentioned, in the capital plan that we're going to be coming up at the later stage of this year. However, this contractor will be assessing all 211 schools between now and next summer. So that would be the baseline. And then after that is complete, the baseline is complete, then we will decide on that cycle, what time frame is that they're going to come back and reassess every facility. So it would be a certain percentage of facilities every year after next summer.
Okay, so all 211 assessments are included in this contract. We're just doing 50 right now, and then the rest are kind of going to be done until next summer. So
That is
50 are immediate priorities, and then
correct.
All right, perfect.
Because
Thank
we
you.
just did not have enough time to do the all 211 between now and this summer, when we need the data for our next capital plan.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Seeing no other lights, may I have a motion to approve item 5.1?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you, that's unanimous. All right, moving right along, we are going to go to our item 6.1, legislative positions. Now, Board of Ed, yes. No, 5.7 wasn't pulled. Thank you for checking. Now, the Board of Education is the legislative branch of our school system. This year, we established a legislative platform, and I encourage to see that two of our key priorities, the GED accessibility and the APIB exam fees, have been taken up by legislators. Today, we are taking positions on proposed bills in Annapolis that affect our budget, operation, and school community. I will turn the discussion to our board's Legislative Affairs Coordinator, Ms. Armstrong. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Yang. Good evening, President Yang, Dr. Taylor, members of the board. Ms. Yang did a pretty good preamble for me, so I don't think I have much to say other than let's get to the bills. The first bill on today's report is House Bill 232, in the cross-file is Senate Bill 346, the Maryland Beverage Container Recycling Refund and Litter Reduction Program. This program sets up a deposit and refund system for glass, plastic, and metal beverage containers. The stated purpose of the bill is to reduce litter and pollution, which is a laudable goal. Unfortunately, the program would present significant upfront purchasing costs, estimated by our administrative team to be approximately $1.8 million, plus additional staff and overhead costs to implement the program. There's little hope that we would recuperate the expense via the available refund once the containers are returned, because not all the containers will be placed in appropriate receptacles, so they won't all get returned, so we won't get the refund on all of them. And in many instances, we can't pass along the 10-cent increase to the consumer, who would be the student, because we're not charging per item for everything that's purchased in our cafeterias and otherwise. Because of the significant upfront costs, the recommended position is to oppose this bill.
Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Yes, Mr. Silvano.
Just one thing. I mean, if the bill were to exclude schools and maybe sort of this thing, which I think is very difficult for it to do, I feel like personally I would support it. But again, I don't think it's very easy to legislate it, which is why I think we're taking the opposition stance, correct?
Well, for us, it's the cost. If it were written in a way that excluded schools, quite frankly, we wouldn't be discussing it, period, because it wouldn't have an impact on us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So this, yes, Ms.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to kind of mention that as well. Obviously, we all want to be climate forward. We want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to preserve, our environment and our earth for our children. But I think that in these years where we have very tight fiscal constraints, where we're looking at budgets and trying to make sure that every penny goes as much as it can towards our students and what they need, and we have so many needs, that even with those very laudable goals, which I support generally, it's challenging to support this type of bill because of those costs that come with it. So thank you so much for preparing this for us.
Seeing no other lights, may I have a motion?
Move approval.
Move to oppose the bill.
Move to oppose the bill.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous.
Great. So the next bill is HB 543. This is County Boards of Education Substance Abuse Treatment Student Information Disclosure Policy. So this bill would require us to share student information with either a detox center or a hospital in connection with substance abuse treatment if a student is experiencing a health emergency, and the disclosure is necessary to protect the health and safety of the student. Student records currently are typically protected from disclosure by FERPA, which is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. FERPA already contains an exception which would allow the disclosure of student information, quote, if the educational agency determines that there is a significant threat to the health or safety of a student. So because the proposed legislation is basically duplicative of what FERPA already contains, we are recommending to oppose this bill.
Any questions or comments from colleagues? Yes, Mr. Savannah. Okay, so seeing no lights, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to oppose the bill. All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Let's go to the next one.
Great. So the next one is House Bill 689. This is the Maryland Medical Assistance Program, use of reimbursement funds by schools. So this bill places restrictions on the use of funds the system receives from the Maryland Medical Assistance Program or the Maryland Children's Health Insurance Program, although I think that's less common. Currently, medical assistance revenue is used to fund permanent special education staff members who directly support special education students, central office staff to support monitoring, collecting, and ensuring compliance with medical assistance billing regulations, which would make sure that we're getting the most refund that we can, ensuring compliance, payment of recertification fees for speech pathologists, and funding for university partnerships to create a pipeline for new speech pathologists to be employed by MCPS. Right now, MCPS generates approximately $5.2 million in medical assistance revenue annually, and based on the use restrictions in this bill, only about $2.2 million in services that are currently funded through the Medical Assistance Fund would be allowable. So this would cause about a $3 million shortage in our special education budget. It would have a direct negative impact on our special education students, which is the student population the reimbursement funds are currently used to support and benefit. The bill also narrowly defines who a provider is to include only medical providers. So it excludes special education teachers from the group of employees who would be eligible for recruitment and retention stipends that were available in the bill. Special education teachers have the same authority and ability to bill medical assistance for services they provide. And in fact, in our school system, services provided by special education teachers makes up approximately 75% of our reimbursement funds, whereas only 25% come from medical billers, medical providers. So not allowing the teachers to receive the stipend creates an inequity that is unjustified. So in short and kind of long, the bill places various restrictions on how school systems can use medical assistance reimbursement funds. Schools are in the best position to determine how the funds can be used to best support some of their most vulnerable and at-need students. Because the bill removes that ability, the proposed position is to oppose this bill.
Thank you for that explanation. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Matora.
Thank you so much. Just so that I'm clear and so that the community understands, so currently the revenue that we receive, the school system uses it for the various allocations that you mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. Predominantly in special education, with the reimbursements the way you talked about with the 75% for our teachers and that type of billing versus medical providers.
Correct.
This bill would tell us, no, we're going to tell, the state is going to tell you that what you can use that money for, and you can only use it for A, B, C, and D, which is mostly not what we are currently using to provide those services for our kids.
Correct.
Right? Okay, thank you so much.
Seeing no other lights, may I have a motion?
Move to oppose.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. The motion carries. Thank you.
Great. So the next bill is HB 811. The cross file is SB 526. This is construction of sidewalks and crosswalks, safe alternative routes to public schools. So this bill would require us to prepare an annual report providing safe pathways a student can use to walk from their residence to their assigned school. This applies only to students who live near enough to a school that transportation is not provided. The county would then have to use this report to construct sidewalks and crosswalks within the designated paths. Our staff estimates that it would cost us approximately $5 million annually to prepare this report and make sure it's up to date. The cost to the county would be substantial. The fiscal note says it's as much as $96 million in the first year, and then annual maintenance costs of approximately $1 million. There's also a potential that it opens our school system up to liability for injuries that maybe occur on these routes that we designate as safe, but then we do not have any obligation or legal authority to maintain. For these reasons, we recommend that the board oppose this bill.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
Move to oppose.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Next one, please.
Great. So the next bill is SB 355. This is the Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program Delay of Implementation. This bill delays the implementation date of the Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program for 2 years. The proposed delay will provide fiscal relief as employees and employer contributions will be delayed, and additional time for the Department of Labor to finalize regulations and other aspects of the program that remain outstanding. The Department of Labor has recognized a need for a delay in light of changes at the federal level and the uncertainty that those changes have created for Maryland employers and workers. The Department of Labor is requesting an 18-month delay, whereas the bill as proposed is a 2-year delay. This extension would provide MCPS with additional time to plan for implementation and mitigate the financial impact on employees and the school system, and ensure a more structured and effective transition as the program takes off. As a result, we recommend that the board support this bill.
Any questions or comments?
So
Mrs. Savannah.
Just to be clear, we're in favor of the Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program. It's just there's not current regulations, and the Department of Labor is also saying, well, we need some more time to get it all figured out before we go forward.
Yeah, I mean, there are financial concerns with the program taking off currently, and yes, the Department of Labor has acknowledged that they need more time to get it right.
Thank you.
Seeing no other lights, may I have a motion?
Move to support this bill.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. That's unanimous.
Okay, so now we have HB 608. The cross file is SB 821. This is the primary and secondary education student immunization temporary admission period. So this bill would allow school systems to temporarily admit students who do not meet the current requirements regarding immunizations for a period of not more than 60 days. Currently, we must exclude a student without the required immunizations after 20 days. In order to be temporarily admitted under the bill, a family would have to provide an evidence of an appointment within that 60-day period and then provide proof of the immunizations after the appointment occurs. This extension benefits our families, especially our newly arrived families who sometimes experience difficulties either obtaining proof of immunizations that they've already obtained or getting an appointment to receive the required immunizations that they don't already have. The extended time allows the children to remain in school, reducing the harm and learning loss that can result from exclusion. Due to the benefit this bill provides to our families and students, we recommend that the board support this legislation.
Thank you. And I understand that a lot of family, it takes a long time to find a primary care doctor and set up an appointment. So I see it as a very positive move. May I have a motion? Oh, I see light, Ms. Montoya.
Thank you. I have a question, and I'm looking at the Maryland statutes here, and I'm not sure if that would apply here, but in terms of the 60 days, are these calendar days, business days? I know sometimes depending on the jurisdiction, if it's above this many days, we count weekends. If it's not, we don't. With a number like 60, I'm inclined to think we're talking calendar days, not business days. But that would just be something interesting to note if it is, in fact, business days, because then we're talking about a more extensive period than just 2 months, basically. So that's kind of one question I have. One concern I have with this bill, as a mom of 2 little kids, I know it is challenging to get doctor's appointments. Sometimes people aren't available. You can't necessarily just go anywhere sometimes, depending on if you have insurance or don't. That being said, I get concerned that instead of solving the problem, and not necessarily by the board or the school system, but as a society, instead of solving the challenge of families having access to health care and to timely immunizations, especially for our children, that instead we're just providing for an extended period of time for which we're going to allow them to not have them, which puts potentially those children, their families, other families, school staff at risk because people might have suppressed immune systems. They may live with someone who does, or elderly parents. We have multi-generational families living in one home. So I find it challenging to think that this is the best solution.
So for your first question, the bill specifically says 60 calendar days. So it would be a straight 60 count. For the concern, there are two sides. So yes, you are allowing students to remain enrolled for potentially a longer period of time while they're attempting to get those immunizations, which presents a potential health concern. We also find that excluding the students and not allowing them to access education is harmful to them in other ways. So it is just a balance of what the school system, finds more pressing. And I know that there are a lot of school systems that have a lot of students who end up getting excluded after 20 days because they are actively trying to get immunizations that they just cannot get in that short time frame.
And are you aware of whether it's Delegate Taylor or Senator Watson or any other of our state level legislators, have they raised this issue about, sometimes we talk about like putting Band-Aids over problems versus getting to the roots of the problem. Is that even a conversation that's being had? Are you aware? Or is it just, this is what we think should be the solution?
I don't know what kind of conversations are being had about trying to fix the underlying problem. I know that this bill was one that was proposed and spearheaded by Prince George's. Prince George's?
Yeah, I think they're both Prince George's County.
By Prince George's school system, because they are seeing this issue of having to exclude students after 20 days, and they have asked for a legislative fix to allow for a longer period of time.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Rivera-Ovens?
I just wanted to put in my sense in that this also, I believe, goes into the boosters that kids get for immunization. So that's the second round that they need to. And as somebody who serves a lot of these families in Dale County, I can tell you that I think my colleague Toya is right. We're not really addressing the issue, which is the fact that some of these families, they make appointments in May to be able to be seen in August or September. And it becomes an equity issue when you have kids who are starting, the first day of school, and then you have kids who have to start weeks later. So the best solution would be, for us to be able to have funding to be able to do immunization clinics during the summer to get a lot of these kids ready. But as many of you know, we also had children who start school in the middle of the year or for instance. So as somebody who has seen children stayed home because they're waiting for their booster shots, it is just not possible to many of them. Thank you.
All right. See no other lights, may I have a motion?
Move to support this bill.
Second.
The motion is to support the bill. All in favor, please raise your hand. That's Ms. Stewart, Ms. Montoya, Ms. Wolf, and all of us. And okay, so it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next one.
So the last bill on which we were going to ask the board to take a position is HB 504 and SB 429, which is the Governor's Excellence in Maryland Public Schools Act. This is a very large bill that covers many items. So what I'm going to do is give a high-level overview of the bill. I'm going to identify the main initiatives and propose a stance on those items. The recommended bill position is support with amendments, and the requested amendments, although they're not yet known, will be determined based on the board's stance on each of the initiatives that are contained within the bill. As I go through this bill, I definitely invite Dr. Taylor and Ms. McGuire, when she returns, to add any information or insights they have based on discussions the administration have had about this bill. I'm sure they have been extensive. So this bill addresses three main areas: collaborative time in teacher recruitment, teacher retention and development, and community schools. As it concerns collaborative time, the bill proposes to delay the implementation of the increased collaborative time for educators that is contained in the blueprint. The delay is for 4 years. The requirement for the 60-40 split for teachers was scheduled to go into effect starting in FY26, and it goes into effect over an 8-year period. The proposed bill delays the implementation until FY30, and along with the proposed delay, there are changes and reductions in the foundation formulas. So in FY26, the per pupil foundation formula was scheduled to increase by $163 per student in order to begin implementing the collaborative time requirement. There's an inflationary factor that also applies. Because of the proposed pause on the collaborative time requirement, the school system is no longer eligible for that additional $163 per pupil. So this means that under the current law, the foundation funding was scheduled to grow from $8,789 per student in FY25 to $9,226 per student in FY26. Because of the reduction in this bill, the increase would only be to $9,063. So there is still an increase from year to year. It's just smaller than what we were anticipating. Okay. The decrease in the foundation funding also impacts funding for our multilingual learners and compensatory education students because that funding is based on a percentage of the foundation funding. That's also the case for special education students, but special education funds were held harmless, so there would be no impact on special education funds. Because of the funding, the reduced funding that this proposal presents, there would be, the suggestion would be that we wouldn't support that portion of the bill. There are also teacher recruitment initiatives that have been proposed in the bill. There's a national teacher recruitment campaign, a Maryland teacher relocation incentive grant, some changes to the Grow Your Own Educators grant program, pathway to teacher licensure collaborative, which would change licensing requirements, and the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. These are all plans for MSTE to try to increase teacher recruitment and retention in our state. The Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact is also, including Maryland in that compact, is also the subject of a freestanding bill that we supported last time under our platform. So we've already expressed support for that provision. The other items are all things that aren't really fleshed out very well. They cost money, and we don't know what the programs look like. So until or unless more information can be received on those, the suggestion for this section is to support the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact, but not support those other items at this time. In terms of teacher retention and development, there's currently a school system leadership training program, which was put into effect last legislative session, and that requires the state superintendent of schools and local superintendents, board chairs or presidents and vice chairs and vice presidents to do a training program. This bill would develop an additional training program for a Maryland School Leadership Academy that would be for school-based staff. Again, run by MSDE. It would be pretty onerous. There's also an academic excellence program and fund. This has a pretty substantial fiscal note, and it would basically be MSDE would hire coordinators of professional learning and instructional coaches, and the stated position is to ensure that Maryland students have equitable access to high quality instruction and targeted academic support. These are both items that we feel that we can do at a local level, that we don't need additional oversight and input from MSDE. So these are things that we would recommend that we do not support because this is something that we can do. And then finally is the community schools. This bill proposes a funding freeze for both the personnel and per pupil grant funding for community schools in FY 27 and 28. So what would happen is the community schools that are already identified and receiving funding in FY 26 would continue to be identified community schools. For FY 27 and 28, they would receive the same amount of funding that they were getting in FY 26. No additional community schools would be identified. No additional community schools would be brought into the program. In FY29, the plan would resume, so increased funding would continue at that point. New community schools could be brought into the program, but everything would resume at the FY27 level. So it is just a freeze. Everything would just remain the same for two fiscal years, and then we would pick up the program where we paused in FY29. There is a funding impact here, a fiscal impact. So I know many school systems are not supporting this this initiative. Along with the community schools program, there is it alters a statutory provision regarding the use of community school funds. Right now, you need 40 community schools to be able to have a little more flexibility on how you spend your funds. This drops it to 2 community schools, so the flexibility would be beneficial. And then it does have additional funding so that MSDE could increase their community schools, the Office of Community Schools, and there likely is benefit to increasing their staff. They currently have 2 staff members that oversee and try to provide support for 700 community schools. And we have had difficulty getting guidance and answers and insight because of the number of schools that they are trying to oversee. So there is some benefit to having MSDE increase that staff. So we would support that. And then finally, there is a special education funding study that's requesting that there just be a study to determine what an appropriate level of funding for special education would be. I think that that is something that could be beneficial. So that would be something else we would support or recommend.
Thank you for that excellent summary. It's a large bill with 60 pages. Yes. I'm going to turn to my colleagues to see if there's any questions and comments. Ms. Wolf.
I want to thank you for that. It's a little bit of uncertainty and lack of clarity around quite a bit of this. So I was curious as to whether or not you felt we had to actually take a position at this time.
So the benefit of taking a position is that then we know what portions of the bill the board likes and what portions of the bill the board doesn't like, so that we can have conversations with our elected officials as this bill is going to get amended, so that Montgomery County's thoughts and needs and desires are part of that conversation. If we don't have a position on the bill, then it's harder to engage in those conversations.
Okay, I would just be curious as to whether or not my fellow board members know which part we're supporting and which part we're not, because it was so much that you went through. So to be perfectly honest, I'm a little hesitant to say support with amendments, because I need all those amendments listed out that we agree with.
Yeah, and I mean, the difficulty with providing actual amendments on a 63-page bill is that the amendments would be kind of line item changing what's there, which just hasn't occurred. Kind of the position and the plan that most of our colleagues across the state have taken is this, that there's a kind of a high level overview and idea of generally what we like and generally what we don't like, and then using that information to move forward to amend the bill through the legislative process.
Ms. Matoya.
Oh, it's okay if Ms. Wolf had something
else. Go ahead, I'll come back.
Thank you. Thank you again. I know this is a very voluminous bill amongst many bills, so I appreciate you providing as best a synopsis as you could for us. And I know it's ever changing. I want to express the same hesitancy. I think it makes me uncomfortable to raise my hand one way or the other when I don't feel certain about what exactly it is that we are taking a position on. But I do recognize that part of this is the evolving nature of this bill because it is so voluminous and there's so many individuals involved in trying to shape what this can look like going forward. I do have concerns maybe even more than I'm going to state in a minute once I read through the bill a couple more times because it is so lengthy. But I'm concerned, and please educate me if I've overlooked this. If it is in here, please let me know. That I don't see anything addressing the payment of AP, IB, and dual enrollment fees for non-farm students, which I know is a rather large chunk of those fees that, at least in our school system, I'm not sure about other school systems. So I'm concerned that that is not being addressed by our state level legislators. I'm also concerned that the collaborative time grants cannot be used for any existing programming, because I know, my understanding at least, is that MCPS has put some efforts in place in anticipation of these requirements, and that's one of the big challenges that we're having is we've done, or at least started to do what we need to do to comply, and now we're being told never mind, but we can't really then go back and tell our staff never mind, right? And so I have a hard time with feeling like Montgomery County is really kind of left out of some of these opportunities that have a big, huge impact on our ability to run our school system and our ability to fund our school system and not to have to go to our community over and over again to say, we need more fiscal support. I also have a concern about the year-long leadership academy. I'm all about training us and making sure that leaders have the tools they need and the education and the connections and the community and collaboration. I have concerns, though, that this is a required year-long academy. It's not just for school principals. It seems that our wonderful superintendent would be required, our school board, any future school board presidents and vice presidents. This is an additional requirement for a year on top of our regular job requirements. I don't see any mechanisms for additional pay or stipends or anything like that. It says that this training is to be in-person and hybrid. I assume that in-person training would likely be in Annapolis, which means we have to drive there. For some of us, that could be over an hour, including parking and gas. And even if, as school systems, we say, well, we're going to support that by doing reimbursements, again, that's an additional cost to our school system where we then maybe have to go back to the community to say, hey, we have this unfunded mandate, but we have to do it, so we might need some more support. And I am always hesitant to do that. Each school system is so different, and especially in Montgomery County where we have such a huge system, so many different parts, multicultural, different geographic locations, different neighborhoods and cultures. It's challenging for me to see how a statewide leadership training and academies would always resonate with the challenges that we have here in Montgomery County. So I think that some of those things may be best left to our local authorities and decisions. So I appreciate all of your work. That's just a few areas that I'm concerned about. I will take another peruse through and then update any other areas of concern. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart?
Thank you for the synopsis. I appreciate the thoroughness. I know that the hearing on this was yesterday, correct?
Correct.
And so we haven't actually submitted anything from Montgomery County board. So I feel like, being that we've already passed the hearing, we have some time because we don't have like a hard deadline. And I actually think maybe it would be a good exercise possibly to go line by line, because this is a really important bill. We could lose millions of dollars, again, that would help fund things, some of it that we already do. And so it's a chunk of money, and we are the largest school system in Maryland. And I think it might be worth it for us to go into a little more detail than we usually do, and also work with our partners through MABE. So that's my little input, and I associate myself with a lot of what my colleagues have said already. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Zimmerman?
Thank you. I want to echo some of the same sentiments as my colleagues. I understand that there are some unknown elements here, and that there might be things that we support, like attracting high-quality educators to Maryland, but in general, it seems like most of the other parts we oppose. I just find it very difficult to say that, to put the word support
even support with amendments, I just find it difficult to say that we support a bill that will reduce or freeze our funding in MCPS. I just find that very difficult to say.
Ms. Rivera Alvin?
Thank you. Just not going to be repetitive, but I just think we're rushing a little bit on this because this was just heard yesterday. Remember, we also have our senators and delegates that are also working on these bills and are up to date on these bills. I would like time for us to see what their take is on it. I just, if I knew some of the amendments, if some of the amendments were, to reimburse us for the ID or so on. We are the largest system in the state. And I just don't want us to rush into something that is going to be long-term, not the best decision at this time. I think, I agree with my colleagues. We have some time to digest it. This is the big thing to digest and to have a lot of unknowns for us to say that we will support the unknown. I'd rather support the known than the unknown. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Armstrong, I have a clarifying questions to ask. So if we put out a position such as support with amendment, when it actually have amendment, is that another opportunity for us to say whether we support the amendment or we will oppose the amendment?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of backtrack and address a couple of the things I heard as well. So as of now, to my knowledge, no actual amendments have been brought forward. Mm-hmm. Even the people who participated in the hearing yesterday, PZAM, who's our Superintendent's Association, MABE, the Boards Association, both took support with amendment positions and did not bring forth specific amendments. They brought forth ideas. This is what we don't like. This is what we like. This is where we think we should see some change, for the purpose of being involved in the conversation going forward. I think my concern about not taking any position right now is that our next meeting isn't until March 18th, and a lot of work is going to happen on this bill in a month. If we take no position right now, then, like I said, we don't have a voice. We're not part of the conversation. So the amendments happen without us being an active participant. To your question, Ms. Yang, yes, once the bill is in subcommittees and starts to get amended and amendments and changes are known, I will absolutely come back to the board and update you on what the bill looks like. And if we take a position now and it gets amended in such a way that we don't agree with, we can change the position. We're not locked into a position for the entirety of the legislative session just because we took one now. So, I will bring updates to the board as this bill develops and changes.
So from what I'm hearing, the staff recommendation is based on it will allow us to be engaged in the process of this bill's development. Correct. As it goes forward.
Correct.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. I'm looking at my colleagues. Yes, Ms. Wolf.
Okay, if you could just summarize again what we're supporting and what we're opposing, that would be helpful to me, because it sounded like the majority of it we would actually be opposing. And so, raising my hand for support with amendments is a little bit questionable to me at this time. I hear what you're saying, but what stops our participation through MABE on this? Because they're down there every week. So just because we would say no position right now doesn't mean that we lose our benefit in being able to contribute to any substantive conversation on it.
Correct. I mean, MABE is still going to be involved. PZAM is still going to be involved. They do speak on behalf of all of the school systems. So it's not as if schools won't have a voice. It's just that Montgomery County's specific perspective wouldn't be necessarily presented. And there are times that we disagree with the position or the direction that MABE or PZAM take. So I mean, I think in broad buckets, we don't support the collaborative time. The recommendations or the proposed stances would be not to support the collaborative time because it results in a significant funding reduction for us. To not support the teacher recruitment efforts outside of the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. Just because one, it's kind of unclear what they do. There is a fiscal impact there, and some of these funds are being diverted from the Blueprint Fund, and we would like for any of these initiatives that go forward to be funded through the general fund. Both the Maryland School Leadership Academy and the Academic Excellence Program and Fund would be things that we do not support in the current.
But I still am not hearing when you say that we would not be offering support, or it would be known what our position is. Known to whom?
So one, we could submit late testimony so that we would be part of the bill file. And then two, it would allow me to have discussions with our elected officials to express where MCPS stands. And I also have weekly meetings with MABE and representation from PZAM, and it would allow me to be able to speak authoritatively about what MCPS's position is on these various items.
Can you tell me what our position, what it is we are supporting, if we support with amendments? Just a list.
I mean, so the two main provisions, or I guess three, would be the flexibility for the spending the community schools funds, the increasing the MSDE staffing for community schools for the oversight, and then the special education funding study. I don't know if Dr. Taylor has anything that he would add to what the school system generally would be supportive of.
And what are we opposing?
Everything else.
Okay, but you know, that's where the problem.
It is largely a bill that in its current form, schools are not happy with.
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm thinking, that everything that you've said was in the discussion actually yesterday, for the most part.
Correct.
So I'm wondering where you get the idea that our position would not be solidified down there, because it would be unknown, because that's part of the discussion that we had when we created the MABE testimony for yesterday.
Correct. It's just that Montgomery County Public Schools is not present. But not that our general position or stance is not covered by those other organizations. It's just that MCPS is absent.
Thank you. I think we are going around for, I want my colleagues to ask their questions and give their comment. Remember to be additive, not repetitive. Mr. Peniel.
Yes,
Savannah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I mean, from what I'm gathering is we oppose a large part of the bill. So would it be possible to change our stance to maybe be to support in part, oppose in part with amendments, to very clearly define, what we oppose versus what we support, to say, it's broad swaths of the bill that we do oppose, and then these are the sections that we do support. Is that a possibility of a motion that can enter the table, looking to board staff or?
I mean, I guess in theory, you could take that position. In practice, in Annapolis, if you're going to provide testimony, your options are support, oppose, or support with amendment. So there's just not a mechanism for support and oppose, but if that makes the board more comfortable to be clear that there are large portions of the bill that are opposed, then, I mean, you could do that.
Okay. And I know, thank you. I know there are several other colleagues has comments. I'm going to go with Ms. Montoya.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that I understand and that the community understands correctly. So when you say if we don't take a position now, then we don't get to be a part of the conversation, I feel a little bit confused, because in my experience with legislative bills, well, one, you can show up and just testify. Well, you can't just show up and testify, right? There's a process, but you can engage in that process as an organization, as an individual, however, elected officials. And so is it that if we don't support this bill, we think that our state level legislators are not going to engage with us about the challenges that we see in the bill? Or is it that we're being told, well, if you don't support, we're not inviting you to the meeting where we're talking about the bill? I just want to better understand what you mean by that like we won't be part of the conversation. I feel confused.
So I am there to profess and advocate for the position of the board. So if the board does not have a position, it makes it more difficult for me to advocate. It does not prevent any of you from reaching out to elected officials to provide your input, but I work at the direction of the board. So with no board position, it makes it more difficult for me to express what the board's position is.
Right, but when you say you're there, do you mean like there's a bill hearing tomorrow, and if you don't have a position from us, you're not able to then, because I understand when you submit testimony for state bills, you have to say you oppose, you support, or you support with amendments, et cetera. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So is that what you're talking about, or are you saying in the conversations that happen, whether it's with MABE, for example, or the Montgomery County delegation, or a particular committee, because maybe it's going to go in front of a committee, so maybe some committee members. Is that what you're talking about? And are we saying that if we don't decide this one way or the other now, that we can't decide this, not, I'll say in the future, but I don't mean like months in the future, right? Obviously working within the time we have for when session ends and crossover and all of those things. I'm just feeling confused as to what you mean when you're saying, well, then I can't advocate for a position. I don't necessarily think that I hear my colleagues saying we don't ever want to take a position. Mm-hmm. Just that there are so many unknowns. And so even in quote unquote taking a position, I'm not fully confident we know what we're taking a position on. And it seems that we may need more time to understand that. Again, given the voluminous, nature of the bill, this isn't a 2-page bill or just one section that's being changed.
So what I'm hearing is that this is an extensive bill with many different parts. And we, as board members, colleagues, would like to get more comfortable with each section and actually flush out our thinking for each section, so to be better able to put in a position for this very large bill. So what I would suggest is that we might need to table this one and then have a more understanding, a study over the bill before we take any positions. Ms. Stewart, do you have anything additional to add?
In the meantime, if we go that direction, we could work with MABE, which Brenda already works with them on the committee. Yes.
Yes, that's all. Working with May is always ongoing.
Right.
Working with May is always ongoing.
So it's not that we're just going to abandon this for a couple weeks. But when we do come in, I don't see a problem with us offering amendments as well and being a really, active in that way, being that, again, we are the largest school system. So I just want us not to be afraid to be very active as a Montgomery County entity.
Yeah. In the interest of time, I'm going to take 2 more comments or questions. Ms. Sylvester.
So are you suggesting that we're going to table it today, but then rally and give Ms. Armstrong some direction so that we don't have to wait a month for her to have clear marching orders from the board?
Yes, and that we'll work out the logistics, how to
Thank you, just want to clarify that.
Conduct that.
Again, I'm just going to follow up on that real quickly. Again, so if we move to table today, we're still going to be able to communicate with legislators on what this is as a board priority, or would we have to make a motion right now to say we oppose in part, support in part, to have that conversation, for you to have that conversation with legislators?
I can certainly still speak in generalities. I can speak with MABE. I can speak with PZAM. I have meetings with their leadership. The difficulty is that everything's couched with, we haven't taken a position on this bill, the Montgomery County Board hasn't actually, so it's just couched in a manner of kind of some level of uncertainty and lack of authority.
Okay, so in order to put us in the best bargaining spot, I'm actually going to move for a support in part, oppose in part, just so we're able to have some level of authority when we're discussing with legislators. So that's the motion that I put on the table.
So can you restate your motion?
Move to support in part and oppose in part with amendments.
I thought we couldn't do that. I mean, that's not like an official position that could be taken on the, like if you were going to submit testimony through the General Assembly website.
But I think it would.
But it just, I think it does better reflect the feeling of the board that you oppose part of the bill and you support other parts of the bill with amendment.
And then with the understanding that we can alter our position later as more information with the
Always.
bill comes to light.
Yes. Mr. Savannah put forth a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Hearing none, the motion does not carry. Thank you. We will.
I have a motion. Do we need to make a motion to table the bill officially, or can we just table
We
it?
don't need a
Okay,
motion to
thank you.
table the bill. All right, so thank you for that portion. And now we're going to go into bills covered under the platform. Board of Education had advocacy platform so these are the bills covered under our platform. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bills. And any questions or comment with any particular bills? Yes, Ms. Matoya.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a couple of brief comments about the bills. Well, I recognize that we do have a platform as a board, and perhaps some of these bills may seem to fall within the platform. And I'm not in any way opposing or rejecting our platform as a Board of Education. But I do have some concerns about I do have some concerns with some of the positions we're taking on particular bills. So for HB 1015, which in the Senate is filed as Senate Bill 468, with the start time for instruction, I absolutely recognize the fiscal constraints, the realities of what we're working in with our budget, and the complexities that it takes to alter things like start times because we have bus transportation and staffing and things like that. So I do want to recognize that for practical purposes, this bill would be challenging for us at this time, including other school districts as well. I do also want to recognize that science does support later school start times for our middle school and high school students. Other jurisdictions do this, other places have this as a law. As a parent of a rising middle schooler, I can see the sleep schedule change myself just over the course of this year. So it's challenging for me to oppose the bill because I know that this is what's best for our students, but I also recognize the fiscal constraints that we're dealing with at this time. I also wanted to comment on HB 688, which is filed as Senate Bill 552, Education, High School Graduation Requirements, Financial Aid Application. I do support opposing the bill, but I want to state my vigorous opposition to this bill. While I think the intent of the bill may be to just make sure that our kids have, are getting these forms filled out when they want to go to college so that they can get the funding they need and make that process perhaps streamlined or access easier for them, which I absolutely support. I'm not sure that the intrusion on their privacy is at the forefront for our legislators. These financial forms contain a lot of information, not just financial information. It could be information about your family, about where people are living, the dynamics of your family, et cetera. So to require this information to be disclosed from families and students, even those who may not be seeking financial support post-graduation, seems like a very intense intrusion of privacy for no purpose. And so I just wanted to state for the community that I very much vigorously oppose that for you. Thank you.
Ms. Armstrong, since these are, oh, Ms. Silvestri, you have a comment?
Yes, I am a big proponent of making sure that all of our students have planned for after graduation. So I did want to comment also on the FAFSA bill. And I got asked for some internal information in terms of what we are doing, and I'm happy to share that with the board. Certainly, I wanted to say that we do want every student to fill out a FAFSA or a MIPSA because there's money on the table. There is money to go to college or any post-secondary institution. So we should continue to strive to help our students come up with a plan for after graduation and take advantage of the money that the state of Maryland provides so that our students can go to the workforce with additional skills that they get through post-secondary training, college, and ready to fulfill our mission to prepare them for college and community. Thank you.
I will associate myself with that comment. Thank you so much. Ms. Stewart.
Since we're commenting, just real quick, I also have a hard time just outright opposing the start time bill because I know I feel like this is a goal to move towards. So I don't know. I know we have a transportation study that we have, I believe an RFP will be going out at some point to look into options about using other transportation means besides our yellow school buses, et cetera, to try to see if we can make this work fiscally. And I just want to let people know that this is something that we can look into, and I hope we do. And the other is the forms. I hope that we continue to engage our students to enable them to fill out the forms they need to get financial aid. And I know we do that work, but I just wanted to associate myself with Carla's comments. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your comment. I just want to remind my colleagues, our oppose for the start time for instruction is not based on the merit of the bill. It's based on preserving local autonomy. So I want to make that very clear to everyone watching and participating in this conversation. Thank you, everyone. Since there's no action to take, I thank you so much for very detailed conversation report on all these bills, and I look forward to our March 18 meetings and also our conversation on the governor's bill. Thank you. Thanks so much for your work. Okay, colleagues, we are going to move to the next item is number 7.1, the very exciting item about regulation, COGRA implementation and cell phone pilot update. As the staff made their way to the front, I'm actually excited, very excited, because recently I had the opportunity to visit Silver Creek Middle School and Rockville High School, where I spoke with students and staff in focus groups about this important topic. Hearing their firsthand experiences provided very valuable insight into how the pilot is functioning in our schools, and it was also incredibly informative to see its impact in real time. So the board looks forward to continue this important conversation today. With that, I will turn to you, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam President. As we've all seen in the news, cell phones and cell phone use are front and center in our schools, and it's been a big part of the national, oh, sorry, hang on a second. Hello? Oh, I'm about to talk through a presentation. They're about to talk through how districts have been grappling with the role of cell phones.
Do we have a pocket? Do we have a phone pocket?
District.
Do we? Thank you so much, Ms. Piles.
Yes.
Very much. Thank
Probably
you.
need to lock that up. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Okay.
It's a part of that. So I apologize for the distraction, because it's been fairly significant distraction for today's presentation. And really, districts have been grappling with the role of cell phones, and thank you so much. I appreciate that.
there.
No, I guess so. I got to keep it up there for sure. And in many cases, that role has differed between elementary, middle, and high schools, and Montgomery County is no exception. So we bring to you a brief update about our regulation dealing with personal electronic devices and cell phones, and some findings from our pilot study, and some talking opportunities for the board and some of our staff who have been experiencing this. So at this time, I'm going to turn this over to our Chief of Strategic Initiatives, Stephanie Sharon.
Good evening, everybody. I want to take a moment first to introduce the amazing staff who are here today. I have Dr. Kara Trenkamp, who is the Director of Digital Innovation, who has been really leading the initiative on our Away All Day. I have Rashonda Piles here, who is the principal of Rockville High School, our one and only high school in the Away All Day initiative, and the fabulous Chris Nardi, who is the principal of Pyle Middle School, also in our Away All Day, and they have been, both of them have been a pleasure and models for how to implement this policy and have been integral in helping us learn from them. If we can go to the next slide, please. So today we are going to share an update on both our regulation, COGRA, Away All Day, and a timeline for updates and next steps. And you can see that our headline right here for you today is cell phone restrictions more than mandates. And that is purposeful. We have seen all over the country various different mandates of banning cell phones. And what we have learned is that it actually, to do this well, it has to be more than the mandate. It has to involve thoughtful collaboration with our student, staff, and our community around how best to implement restrictions in a way that is meeting the needs of everybody. So Montgomery County has been revising and tightening up our regulation over the last year, and we took the approach, instead of just going to an immediate ban, about really learning more about the nuances of cell phone management to inform our next steps. So today we're going to hear this. We're going to talk about some of the preliminary findings of the Shared Accountability Report that will be released in early March. And then we are going to, based on those findings, we're going to, over the next few months, continue our communication and collaboration in order to tighten up our implementation and revisions to the regulation, with making any updates to that regulation in May, and also sharing resources and best practices, because again, it's more than mandates, with our schools and community. Next slide, please. So I wanted to just take a minute to refresh everybody's memory on what our current regulation says, and it was updated in 2022. But the purpose of the COGRA regulation is to establish procedures for possession and use of personal mobile devices. So that's not just cell phones. We call it the cell phone regulation, but it actually is all-encompassing to other personal devices: laptops, smartwatches, earbuds, tablets, etc. So our current restrictions are as follows. In elementary school, they cannot have it bell to bell during the day. They can have before and after school, they can have devices. Middle school, as you can see, that's where we start adding in our current regulation a little bit more flexibility. They can have it before and after school. They cannot have it between classes and transition. But there is school and teacher discretion for lunch and instructional class use. High school, they have even more flexibility under our current regulation. They can have it before and after school. They definitely can have it at lunch. And then there is discretion for both instructional class use at the school level and between classes in transition. There is school level discretion. Next slide, please. So as you all know, across the country, we have seen headlines where districts have eliminated this discretion and they have banned cell phones in all grade levels during the entire school day. However, many of these blanket bans at the policy level haven't done much to actually help the schools implement them. They have made bans, but there hasn't been a lot of support to the schools to implement these no cell phone policies, particularly at times like hallways and lunch transitions. Particularly at the high school, what we have learned, and you will hear from Ms. Piles in more detail about today, managing cell phone use is much more complex and challenging and often requires more staff effort and time that they want to make sure that they're focusing on in instruction. There were national guidelines that MCPS was actually cited in the national guidelines by the Department of Education that suggests that when you implement guidelines, it is essential to have stakeholders involved to better understand the complexity and the implementation of a policy. And MCPS really took this national guidance to heart, and that is why we designed the Away All Day experience to better learn about these complexities before moving forward. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kara Trenkamp, who's going to give you more details about what the actual, and before I actually move on, I do want to just point out that a little picture in the upper right-hand corner, that's actually a real news article from 1963, where they actually predicted that phones will be in your pocket in the future. So this has actually been a long time coming, that this has been something that has actually been predicted for quite some time. Dr. Trenkamp is now going to talk more about the parameters and the process for the Away All Day pilot.
Next slide, please. And good evening, I'm Kara Trenkamp. I'm the Director for Digital Innovation, and I'm happy to be here today to share a little bit about our Away All Day initiative and some of the learnings. So last August, we had a voluntary session with our school leaders, particularly at the secondary level, around really building a plan to better understand cell phone management at the middle school level and at the high school level. We had a lot of interest in that meeting. A lot of our school leaders attended, and we talked around some of the challenges that they were experiencing and some of the plans that they wanted to implement. Based on that meeting, schools were able to go back and talk with their leadership teams, talk with their staff around whether they wanted to be part of this initiative. And once they agreed and had some energy around that, they then generated their own plan. So each school was able to, within parameters, generate their implementation plan, which they then submitted to us before school started. In that plan, they outlined their goals, they outlined what they were trying to accomplish, they outlined their communication, their professional training for staff, how they were going to work with students and families to talk through their implementation, and then how they were actually going to do it, how they were going to manage phones, how they were going to escalate consequences, and really monitor their own implementation. We also outlined some considerations around where phones may be needed. And so you can see the considerations highlighted on the slide before you, specifically outlining health issues where there's monitoring of health data. Perhaps at the high school level, there were extenuating circumstances around accommodations. We have some circumstances where our students at the high school level are actually parents themselves and need to make sure that they're able to be in contact with their own family's needs, and other high school complexities, which you'll hear more about. So schools were able to outline those considerations and implement those as part of their plan. We also talked through several different implementation models, and schools were able to select different models of implementation to learn. Most of our schools selected a combination of out-of-sight or classroom caddies. And I know our two principals here today are going to speak a little bit about that. We did have Ms. Piles implement the locking pouches, which she's going to talk about as well. We did not implement the two other models on the slide, the special phone lockers, specifically because when we looked into phone lockers, one, they are considered equipment, so that's a different procurement process for that type of equipment. They're not instructional materials like the pockets or the caddies. The other aspect, many of our school leaders and staff shared that they already have locker banks in the schools. So if they could leverage a locker bank that they already have with that management, that could be helpful. And the other model was to just have kids leave it at home. So that was one that we did not actually explore, but I'm sure that there is some interest in that as well. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Chris Nardi to share a little bit about his implementation at Pyle, and then we'll hear from Ms. Piles about hers at Rockville.
Thank you. We just take the phones away automatically, can't have them at all. Just kidding. My name is Chris Nardi. I'm the principal at Pyle Middle School. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share tonight what works at our school. We've had a policy in place on cell phones before I even arrived at Pyle 12 years ago, away all day. It met with various success. The majority of our students generally followed the expectations around that. However, consistency of follow-through, as with anything, is one of the challenges. Consistency with teacher follow-through in particular. We started to notice an increase about 3 years ago in cell phone and AirPods, in particular issues with numerous confiscated phones. Confiscated simply means that a phone is taken from a student, brought down to the main office. A student can pick it up at the end of the day. Repeat events may end up with a phone call home or asking the parent to come pick it up. It's amazing how many parents have told us we can hold on to them. We purchased cell phone caddies, like the ones you have up here, 2 years ago. To give teachers an opportunity to have an access in every classroom where kids can actually store it if it was becoming a problem in the classroom. The intent was for students either as a class or individually to place their phones in there. This past year, we surveyed our staff about their willingness to support a cell phone policy of away all day. There was some reasoning behind that. 97% of our staff indicated they would support it. There's a collective support then. We have 100 staff members. For the 3 that didn't, they may end up supporting it then. So we met with parents also and included the expectations in our communications as we went home. We explained that the expectation was the cell phone would be out of sight from the start of the day to the end of the day. We felt that giving times in between started to create gray areas. We also, though, shared the consequences, which I just explained to you, which is the idea of confiscating it, bringing it back to the main office. We have a cell phone jail. By the 3rd instance, parents would be asked to pick it up. Or if it was still repeated, we would ask students to check in their phone at the beginning of the day, either with their counselor or they can check it in with their administrator. The number that we got to that point is almost 0, very few. We have shared with families that students can use their phone. They can come to the main office. There is such thing as a landline still. Although we do have a generation of kids who have no idea what a landline is. As a side note, I've watched a child pick up the landline, call mom. And I said, no, you have to dial. Hold on a second. Come here for a second. And had to help them. There's a generation out there that doesn't know a landline.
Right.
I mean, for everybody here, I think, is younger than me, so I'm really old. I had a landline, but that is something. We do give them the opportunity to use the landline in the main office, or if they have a health issue, they can always use it out of the health room. We do have students who do have permission to have access to their phone. Majority of them are medical conditions. In particular, we've had students with diabetes and needing to check blood sugar levels, or their parents to check it, because we had one child who was not good at checking it, and their parent was excellent at checking it, and would contact us and them that it's time to kind of up our medication. And so with all these things in place and these new kind of enforcement, so to speak, and information going out, I returned from medical leave in January after being out for 4 months. And I was amazed at how few phones we had as we really kind of implemented this in a better. We've had virtually none. Nobody was in the cell phone jail. In particular, we had no 6th graders. That I thought was very impressive, but that makes sense. They're coming out of elementary school where that policy already exists. Our 7th and 8th graders, we still had some high flyers, predominantly 8th grade. So we met also with our incoming 6th grade parents in January. We shared our cell phone expectations with them. I almost got a standing ovation. I think there is a want for this. Understand also that this cell phone all day away being more concrete for us also coincided with us moving away from a one-to-one with Chromebooks. We wanted our kids to engage with each other. Student discourse is a big part of what we're doing in our schools. The structures we put in place for that have been important. They can use their Chromebook for almost everything that they need for a classroom. They don't need to have a cell phone for a classroom activity. So we've seen a significant increase in student engagement and discourse. These routines, these policies are only as effective as we, the adults, routinely enforcing them. And I've heard from other principals, Dr. Tiffany Awkward over at Silver Creek. She reiterated basically consistency is the key as they've implemented theirs, and they also have seen an increase in student engagement and student discourse. We did look into the Yonder bags at one point. It was a very expensive alternative, which is why I said, why can't we just enforce the policy that we have? That would seem to be the least cost-effective and the best in terms of enforcement, and make sure everybody understands it and are very clear. We still get the occasional student who will go to the bathroom to text their parent. We have had students get phone calls from their parents, kind of like your mom just called you, in the middle of the meeting, in the classroom. We have asked kids to come down to the main office. Well, I have to contact my parent. All right, come to the main office, come in my office, go ahead and contact your parent, and I'll step out. That's not a big deal. So I think we are flexible in understanding. I don't think middle schools as well as elementary schools have the same needs as you're going to hear from a high school because of work in particular for high schoolers and sports and all the other things that go on at the high school level. So thank you very much.
All right, Principal Nardi, you just stole my entire presentation. So you know what? The only thing we did was implement pouches. Kidding. That's not true. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Madam President Yang and Board of Education members and Dr. Taylor. I am Rashonda Piles, the very proud principal of Rockville High School, and I do have an opportunity to share with you all how we implemented a cell phone policy at Rockville. So like Principal Nardi shared, after COVID, right, for about 3 years, we've seen an uptick in students utilizing their cell phones, pulling them out of their pockets easily to either check a text message, check social media, and yes, we do our best to block on the network, correct? But our kids are smart. They find a way around everything that we put in place, and you'll hear a little bit about how they found a way around these safe pouches that we have. But our goal was, you know, I kept hearing from teachers, cell phones are a problem, cell phones are a problem. They said students were disengaged. They said that students are not talking in class. And it was negatively impacting teaching and learning. So my wheels started turning. And I said, okay, what can we do? What can we do? What can I do to let my staff know that I want to support them, but also send a message to our students that, you know, our job is to prepare you for college, career, and community readiness. We have to teach you how to be digitally responsible. There's a time and a place for the use of cell phones. And Dr. Taylor, please tell your mom, I'm so sorry you got pouched. I apologize for that during her call. The one thing that I knew is that at the high school level, there are more students, not that there aren't at the middle school and elementary, but there are more students to staff ratio with a little less structure than at the elementary and middle school levels. So thinking about an away all day approach, I just couldn't figure out how we could manage that. And I did bounce that off of my admin team, my leaders, student leaders, students who get in trouble sometimes. Talk to Principal Piles. Tell me what you think about this. So during the during the year of 23-24, I did collect feedback from staff, and over 70% of my staff said cell phones are an issue. So we knew that. So during the summer of 2024, I actually started doing some research prior to reaching out to the Office of Strategic Initiatives, just like what could we use? What do these pouches look like? And yes, like Principal Nardi said, Yonder just did not, they were a little pricey. So I thought, and they're also their vision and their motto for the Yonder pouch was a little different than I felt like what we were going for at the high school. So brought students together, brought parents in, brought teachers in, and of course our leadership team, and we had some discussions. We talked about are cell phones an issue at Rockville High School. Now, do I believe that it's an issue across the board? Yes. We've heard news, we've heard news stories, we've seen articles, we've read articles, but we had to focus on Rockville. And so the one thing that my students and parents and teachers and the admin team and the leadership team came to a consensus is that cell phones are a distraction. So we know that cell phones are a distraction. So what is it that we do about that? we needed to put a policy in place. What students and parents shared was that our kids need, or we need, our cell phones for two reasons. They felt like communication about extracurricular activities, communication with parents, and the second piece around that was safety. And it wasn't necessarily safety at school, it was safety beyond the school day, prior to the school day, for those who walk to and from school, to those who drive to and from work. They needed to be able to have access to their cell phones. So they were very clear, and President Yang had an opportunity to talk to one of my AP classes, and they were very clear that having an away all day policy was not going to work for them at the high school level, and they wouldn't follow the policy. So we kind of came together and we decided on what we call a bell-to-bell no-cell policy, and that included all PMD devices, so the Apple Watches, the AirPods, and the headphones. So under our policy, students are expected to keep their cell phones out of sight in a backpack, a purse, or a bag from the time the tardy bell rings until the dismissal bell. Not on their persons, not turned over on their phones, because we're all human beings. If you put our phones in front of us, we're gonna grab those phones to look at them, and it's gonna take us away from whatever instruction is in front of us or presentation is in front of us. And then I also encourage our teachers, like, hey, at the beginning of class, say, at this time, all PMDs must be placed in a backpack, in a bag, or a purse, not on your persons and not on your desk. So what would happen if our students did not adhere by the policy? I was so excited when Stephanie reached out to me and said, hey, let's talk. Let's talk about this cell phone policy and pouches. So I worked with the Office of Strategic Initiatives to explore some possibilities of a locked pouch, just as an incentive for students not to utilize them. Follow the policy. We want to treat you like the young adults that you are becoming, so we want you to follow the policy. So we did end up going with the safe pouch. And we have, at Rockville, we have a progressive discipline approach. So we start off with, it ranges from a warning to a locked pouch for the period that the teacher has an opportunity to place the phones in the pouches, to a locked pouch, locked phones in the pouches, and the students keep them until the end of the school day, and then they go down to the attendance window and they get them unlocked at the end of the school day. Sometimes, we have to confiscate the pouches because they are still not adhering to the policy. Parents, we meet with parents, we talk about the expectations, we reiterate them again. And then sometimes students are given after school detentions and just that's about it for the consequences. Kids have done a really nice job. We've only pouched since October 21st, 168 students out of 1563. And only 39 of them have received office referrals for continued use of PMDs. So I think that's pretty good. It's not too bad for a first year. So what did our communication plan look like? Very easily, staff, students, and parents. We started the communication over the summer of 2024 via newsletters. We did some social media. We had new student orientation during pre-service week with staff. We had back to school night. And of course, I always keep that in my community newsletters every month, just as a reminder. Hey, don't forget, bell to bell, no cell. And then we outlined it very clearly during our expectations assembly first semester, and additionally at the onset of second semester. Again, my belief is that we are preparing students for college, career, and community readiness. Now, I had an opportunity to reach out to 2 other high schools. I spoke with Principal Taylor over at Churchill, and they also have a bell-to-bell no-cell policy, but they use cubes or storage crates for phones. So when students walk in, they're expected to place their cell phones in a cubby, and all of the other earbuds and Apple Watches are expected to remain in their backpacks. They're not allowed during the instructional period to bring those items out into the hallway. And if they do, they get them confiscated and must be picked up at the end of the school day by a parent. His policy started on August the 1st. We implemented our policy at the very beginning of the school year at Rockville, but we didn't implement the pouches until they came in, which was the second quarter. So we kind of gave them a grace period, like it's coming, it's coming. At the onset of second quarter, we began with the pouches. I also spoke with Principal Smith at Northwest. They also have a bell-to-bell, no-cell away and out-of-sight policy, which is basically the same, storing all of their PMDs in an out-of-sight or in a backpack. And they also have pocket holders. And of course, they allow their teachers a little flexibility within the classroom to share their expectations of how students should utilize their cell phones. They have the same, pretty much the same consequences. They have warnings, parent contact, conversations with parents, documentation, and for some students, there are support plans that are put in place at Northwest. So what are some of the benefits? We've seen improved learning and the environment, fewer interruptions. I think this is super awesome that the three of us have all seen decrease in our hallway traffic and class skipping. That's huge at the high school level. Churchill, the Cubbies allow the administrators to walk around and monitor to ensure that the policy is enforced properly across the school. We've heard a lot of positive feedback from parents and some from students. They'll admit, that having that cell phone away during class time has allowed them to be more engaged in what's going on in the classroom. Staff enforcing the policy, it's been working for those who do. And the biggest thing, like Principal Nardi said, is that, the note that we want everyone to walk away with is that policies are only effective when adults routinely enforce them. So thank you.
Thank you. Can we move to the next slide, please? And while we do, I wanted to share that our colleagues in MCEA have also been active partners in looking at cell phone management and improvement of that. We've had ongoing collaborative conversations with our partners in MCEA. I know they also have a series of meetings and work sessions around this topic, and many of the themes that you've heard and will continue to see in the data, they also echo that sentiment, those sentiments as well. So I did want to acknowledge our partners in MCEA as being very collaborative in this conversation and very interested in the same types of solutions that we're talking about here today. So with that, we have been, our partners in the Department of Shared Accountability have been conducting some research around our, not only our COGRA regulation, just what people know about it and how they feel about it, but how that then compares to the away all day implementation. That research has been ongoing since the fall. It has just recently wrapped up, and a report is being drafted as we speak and will be released in March. So what you're seeing today is very preliminary data about that research and a lot more details around the methodology, around the findings, different data views will all be included in that research brief that is coming. So this presentation is a little bit ahead of that, but that will be coming next in the next couple weeks here. So I just wanted to preface these slides with that, knowing that there's more to come around their findings. There's a lot of data that they have that they're working through right now. So what we're seeing on this slide, one of the questions that we surveyed staff and families and students was just awareness of the cell phone rules. Do people actually have awareness of our guidelines and our rules? And so so this slide looks at their familiarity, and what you'll see there is that elementary school in particular really had low percentage rates around that awareness. And I think that aligns to the other data that we're going to see going forward because our policy actually already has a no cell phone regulation in place at the elementary school level. So you'll see that consistent represented across the additional slides. You'll see also that the percentage of respondents reported somewhat or very familiar at our middle school and and high school level. So you'll see that that there is a strong awareness, particularly with our staff and then our families. And when you get into the away all day, because of the communication plans that were put in place, it's not surprising that a higher percentage of everyone involved is aware of the cell phone regulations and policies. If we go to the next slide, please. So another question that we asked is, what are students bringing to school? So as you saw in COGRA, it is a personal mobile device regulation. It is not a cell phone regulation. So it does include other devices. So we were curious to know what are students bringing. Not surprising, the majority of our families and students, when surveyed, acknowledge that it is the mobile phone that is the primary device that's being brought to school, but there are other devices, as you heard from our principals, around earbuds and headphones coming to school and smartwatches coming to school. You'll also see, again, that theme around elementary, that their child doesn't really, the majority do not bring a device to school. So when we're talking about this, we really are talking about secondary. I also wanted to make note, two things on this slide. The dashes, where you see the e-reader and My Child does not take any devices to school. For students, there is no data in those categories. Students were not asked the question around whether in the questions where they were asked what did they take to school, you can see that data. But the other question there was only pertaining to the adults in the house. And e-readers, there was no data on e-readers coming in from the students. I think that technology is maybe legacy at this point. So we've got that. I also wanted to draw your attention to the number of respondents. So you see the number of respondents there across families and students and at the different levels. That data is consistent across all data slides. So the prior data slide, that data, those numbers are consistent. And in the next two slides, the data is representative of those same numbers as well. Next slide, please. I know, right? Yeah. So one of the other questions that we asked is, how do our stakeholders feel about the rules? And really the question was getting at, are we too relaxed? Are we too restrictive? Are we just right? And not too surprising on some of the trends here. We were excited to see that a lot of sort of crowdsourcing around the just right. But you can see where we weren't hitting the mark on the just right. We had some tension points where some staff were sharing, particularly at the high school level, that we were too relaxed in our current regulation. But you see that shifts a bit in the away all day schools, where the majority of the staff there acknowledge there that that's just right. So tightening up on that really did make a difference in that data. Not surprising, our students at the middle school level in particular and the away all day schools were thinking that potentially we were too restrictive with them. And again, our families echoing that same sentiment around just right. So we felt really good about that, and I think that gives us some information around where we might want to head as we continue to look at the data. Again, echoing that more data will be coming out in the full report. Next slide, please. And you could click one more time. So this slide here really brings out some of the themes that we collected in our open responses in the survey, also through conversations with our ongoing principal conversations and our ongoing collaboration with MCEA to really bring out some of the themes across our stakeholder groups around what's working and what are the challenges. The highlight in yellow shows commonality across our groups. So in the what's working category, you've heard already, improved classroom focus, engagement, and fewer distractions, consistent across principals, teachers, and students when asked. You can see in the challenges section, again, you've heard these already echoed in the presentation. Students are clever. They find ways around limitations for sure. So staying on top of them, trying to stay one step in front of them is sometimes tricky. There's a little bit of frustration around the time it takes to manage cell phones. Our principals and our teachers shared that it is taking time away from other really important things that they can be doing around teaching and learning and being a leader of their building. And so that additional workload is something that came out in both the principal and teacher voices. One of the additional pieces to highlight in the student piece, while a lot of our students did share that it did allow them the opportunity to be more collaborative with their colleagues, we did hear from students that shared that it did actually introduce additional stress and anxiety for them. It did also, they felt increased alienation and loneliness because of the lack of ability to connect with whatever they need to do on their cell phone. And so there's a little bit of isolation and also a little bit of increased tension between teachers and students around that notion of a cell phone. So just wanted to elevate that a little bit when we think about that student voice. And with that, I would like to, next slide, please. I would like to turn it back over to Ms. Sharon to close us out and open us up for questions.
So hopefully, again, you understand our headline, that it's more than mandates, that we have to think the best way to summarize this is that restrictions are great, but we need to make sure that our schools are supported in how to implement those restrictions in a way that is useful and practical for their communities. So again, just as a reminder, we're finalizing and releasing the evaluation report in early March. That's the final report. You just received some of the preliminary data today. We will work on revising our current regulation, and then we will work with our union staff, students, and parents to review that. And then concurrently, we will gain stakeholder feedback and also solidify guidelines and communications to support any new implementation that needs to happen and communicate that out to schools in May. So at this time, I will turn it over to President Yang.
Thank you for the presentation, and I'm going to turn to my colleagues for questions, and I'm going to start from my right-hand side, Ms. Montoya.
Thank you so much. First, thank you to our...
so sorry. Let's first go one question, the first round.
Okay. So I just wanted to thank you for being here again. Long day, and I appreciate you coming here to share with us how these practices and policies have been implemented in your schools. For my first question will be about the data, because I need some clarification. On the survey, was it middle school and high school families that the survey was distributed to? And then if they happen to have an elementary school student, perhaps they marked it and then could answer questions related to that? I'm just a little confused by your data table.
Right. So the survey went out to elementary, middle, and high school, and that is because there were two parts to the study. One was to look at our existing COGRA, and the other was to look at the away all-day implementation in relation to that.
And so were these selected schools? Was it the whole system?
Oh, it was a sample size, so it was across the district, and it was a sampling across the district for those schools.
And how was that determined who would get that or not? Or
I'm going to ask Dr. Addison to come up if she's here so she can explain it in more detail for you.
Okay, and then as she's coming up, if I can just make one point, and I make this point because I believe I've heard it made from my colleagues before when we're looking at charts and things in these presentations. On page 6, there's some charts, and 25% of what, right? Anytime we have a chart, we always need to know the N. I can appreciate that perhaps it is illustrated on other, subsequent tables, subsequent slides, but one that doesn't tell me, we have the away all day schools, is the high schools that are not away all day, right? It's a little confusing. And then especially when we're looking at the charts, again, we don't know what the N is. the charts should be able to stand alone by themselves, right? We have our lovely media folks back there in the back. If they want to print one of these charts, it's an incomplete picture. It doesn't tell the whole story. So no one's going to be able to know unless they have this whole presentation. So I would just really appreciate if the N should be on the chart. And then thank you, Dr. Addison.
No, thank you, and I appreciate your feedback in terms of how we can improve on the data slides. Your question in terms of who was included.
How was it determined who should be?
It was a random sampling of non-pilot schools as well as, and then the away all day was all of the individuals in those schools.
So you have some sort of algorithm that creates a random sample throughout all of the different schools?
In our statistical software, we can set it to randomly select schools, and that's what we do.
Okay, and I guess part of the reason I'm asking is because if we just combine the away all, and again, the away all day schools, are those middle schools, are those high schools? It's challenging to know. So perhaps that would have been good to break down, because it's really hard to see the snapshot of how many high school families responded, how many middle school families responded in either category.
Yes.
And then when you even look at those numbers, even if we're going to guesstimate, they are much, much higher than our elementary school families who responded.
Yes.
Right. And so also then, taking into account things like which clusters are they in, which geographic location are they in, what is the socioeconomic status, all of these things help us to understand the picture, at least from my perspective when I have to determine policy. So I absolutely appreciate the feedback and the data. I think that we could perhaps improve it a bit to help make it a bit more informative for us.
Yes, and I will add, again, thank you for that feedback in terms of the presentation. Definitely in the forthcoming report, that level of detail and clarity will be provided.
Thank you.
Ms. Stewart?
I just wanted to ask Ms. Piles, if I could, I don't think you talked about lunch, so I'm curious what happens at lunch. Are they away?
So I didn't say that. Thank you very much, Mrs. Stewart. I appreciate that.
I could have missed it.
No, you did not. You did not. I moved quickly. Okay, so within the policy, students have access before school, during lunch, after school, and during transition at Rockville. Yes, ma'am.
And so after lunch, was it, did you notice any resistance of putting it back away after it came out? I'm just curious if that worked out okay.
No, obviously there are students who are going to push the envelope, and when we do, we follow through with our, with the consequence of not putting your cell phone away. But again, at the onset of class, all right, students, it's time for us to put our cell phones in a backpack, a bag, or in a purse, not on your persons and not on your desk.
So they practice
being
able to connect and
yes, it's the
disconnect.
routine. It is the routine. And the more they hear it, the easier it will be, right? Next year, when we go into doing the same thing, our students will be more accustomed to the expectations.
And if it goes in the pouch, though.
Yes, it does.
Then, so if you can't handle that and it goes in the pouch, does that come out of the pouch at lunch, or does it stay in the pouch?
No, ma'am. It stays in the pouch unless it's for the period.
Okay.
So for the, if you were in, let's talk about maybe third period, right? A student has their phone out, the teacher says, okay, Ms. Addison, it's time for you to place your phone away. The student pulls it out again. The teacher provides Ms. Addison a pouch. At the end of the period, the student goes to the teacher, gets it unlocked. Now, if the student pulls it out the following day, it remains in the pouch for the remainder of the day.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Ms. Wolf.
Thank you for the presentation. I just have a question for you, Rashonda. Do you think that you're seeing less conflict in your building as a result of the students not having access to phones during the day and taunting each other?
I do. I feel like there's less conflict with cell phones, like less social media conflict. And I know a lot of times that does happen outside of the school day, but Like we were only on our second fight, and I just had that 2 weeks ago for the year. And I do think that it's attributed to students being in class, having more focus, and paying more attention to their instruction.
Thank you. The only other question I had was about loneliness. Could you repeat what you said? Because I thought, did you say that some of the students are feeling lonely because they don't have the cell phone? Oh, who are they going to talk to if the other kids don't have the cell phone?
I'm not sure on that, but I do know some of the early data coming out from the student voice was not all overwhelmingly positive, where they were now connecting with their peers in better ways. Now, again, some of this data was collected November, December, so, maybe with more time, they are able to, reestablish some social skills and make some connections with their colleagues. But some of the student voice did indicate that they felt a little bit more isolated. Yeah.
Miss Silvestri.
I'm sorry, I'm playing with the props.
Oh, you're playing with the props. Did you manage?
I got it unlocked, I just can't let it lock again.
All right.
So I wanted to ask again.
Put your microphone closer.
So the report is coming out when again?
Early March. They're finishing it up now.
And the superintendent will update the guidelines before the school year is out so that everyone knows what the expectations will be for the next school year.
Correct. Our target for updating the guidelines is early May.
Okay, so is there any board action that needs to happen?
There is no board action.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that for everyone here. The cost of the pouches, how much is a pouch and how did you pay for them for your pilot?
So the pouches that you have in front of you are made by teachers. It's a company by teachers in California, and they were struggling with the same problem that we're talking about here tonight. We found them, Rashonda and staff found them. We were on multiple calls with them. They're $15 a piece, and we paid for a batch of a couple thousand through our Stronger Connections grant. So our Stronger Connections grant focuses on cyber safety, and this project, Away All Day, is one component, just a small component of our cyber safety initiative. And so we were able to use the instructional materials money that's in that grant to purchase a couple thousand pouches for this very purpose.
Okay. And then Pyle doesn't need that because the expectation is your phone is not with you. Yeah. Consequences are...
We just break the phone. You are correct. No, we don't have the honor. We looked into it, but we have the caddies. And I think you're looking at, as kids mature through, it's interesting when I said the sixth graders are the ones who weren't really having cell phone issues. They're coming out of elementary school. The kids who probably on that survey said that they thought we were too restrictive were probably your eighth graders predominantly, because you have this transition that always goes on. And as you get older, there's a natural progression of responsibility. And so I think you have that happening on some level. They want to have more freedoms. Open lunch in high school. We don't have that in middle schools. So that ability to do that. So you're correct. We don't have these. We don't need it at our school. I can't speak for all the other schools.
Just to add to this, I think the beauty of this pilot that we did with the schools is that frequently when we do any pilots, whether they're an academic pilot or otherwise, we come and we sell the schools, this is what you have to do, right? This is what you have to do. This was a little bit different. We really said, what do you need? This is the parameters. What do you need to make this happen? And let us figure out how to be a support and let you lead this work. So that has really allowed us to learn about, there's multiple different ways to do this, to implement this and implement it well. And it's really based on the different school communities and what they need.
Thank you. I have a final comment, but I'll wait.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for being here and presenting really thoroughly. I just want to say that I also appreciate the student voice that's being brought forward and that I can empathize with our students that, it's difficult to give up those freedoms and also then, having your phone all the time and then having it virtually not at all, right? And that student buy-in is really important. So thank you, Principal Files, for bringing that up, that you really needed that to make it successful. As we're looking at this and as some of our students are feeling lonely, I just hope that we can get a little bit creative in that way as well. And we're looking at, I don't want to say like specific social skills groups, but perhaps, different clubs or activities that could be available during lunchtime. I'm imagining that child that might usually sit alone but have their phone, and that seems socially acceptable, and now they're just alone. That maybe we have some other ways to kind of help mitigate that with our kids, that they're just not feeling that loneliness. I don't know if anyone's done anything with that, just a thought.
I have a question to the pilot schools. As your school is going through this pilot, what other needs or supports do you have for the central leadership? What would you like to see that will help you do this better?
I don't know that I need anything specific other than your support of what is a policy in place and that we support it. So when somebody comes back and says, we're going to go to the board, this is what the policy is. And so when we as a school are adhering to that and following it, and I think there's flexibility within each school for special needs and whatever they might be, then I think we're doing our due diligence as it is within our schools.
I would say consistency across the entire district. And it could be by level. I can't tell you that by level wouldn't be best, but I know that, at the high school, there are some significant needs that the students bring. They really share their passion. Like the more that you have an opportunity to talk with them, they share their passion around having their cell phones, and it does extend beyond social media and communicating with friends. Some students are very, some of my immigrant students, if I tried to take their cell phones at the beginning of the school day, they would be very worried because what they shared with Principal Piles was, we need to be able to contact, our parents need to be able to contact us in the event that something happens. And so we have to really think about the broader picture at the high school level. And I hope that as, we are looking at developing a policy that we are taking into account student voice and hearing our parents, but also supporting our teachers because they do need that 47 minutes or however long a class period is to really have students' undivided attention. And then we're teaching them, what do they need to do in college? I had 3 children who attended college. And the one called home and said, Mommy, a student got kicked out because they had their cell phone out. And she was at The Ohio State University, where her class sizes were large. And so to me, that said, hey, we need to let kids know that there's a reason why we're doing this. It's not just because we're trying to be mean, right? We want them to be successful, and we want them to engage in their learning.
Thank you. I'm going to go for one. Ms. Rivera Ovens. Now I can see you.
Thank you. Very quickly. Just wondering what the policy is when they're on a field trip, if you can quickly just tell us. And one of the things that you just said that I've been thinking about is there's definitely some dependency on cell phones that is very innately psychological from the time some of these children are born. That there's truly also an addiction component to it as well. And how are we dealing with that? But there's also other ingredients where, especially when we were talking about our immigrant student population, where there is right now so much fear that the phone is like a lifeline. Not just for the students, but also for the parents. And I just want to know how we're navigating those issues.
Sure. I'll pop in. Thank you for the question about the field trips. We do allow our students to have their cell phones on their the field trips, and no one has ever had a concern about that. Depending on where they are, if it's at a museum, sometimes it makes it very easy for us to be able to communicate in the event that they don't show back up to the checkpoint on time, because at the high school level, they're allowed to self-regulate when they go to some of our larger field trips.
Thank you. I'm going to go for
Can I just jump in real quick on field trips? I know for us, it's been a little different. So for our 6th graders, when they go to their outdoor ed, no cell phones. It's the same policy. 7th graders just finished their junior achievement finance park. They didn't bring their cell phones. However, if there's an end of the year trip, our 8th graders have gone to an end of the year thing, they would allow to do their cell phones on that. So it's outlined to the kids ahead of time in terms of what that expectation is. And
Thank you. You answered one of.
Go ahead.
Of your pre.
All right.
We missed your question, Grace.
Oh, the question was with our children, especially those who are having a really hard time, who have been dependent all their lives on a phone. When you mentioned loneliness and also the addiction factor to it, how is it that you deal with that in the school, and how do you give support to those students? And with the immigrant students, and the times that of uncertainty that a lot of these families are living in, how is it that, how do you take that into account? Because I would think for a lot of parents, more than for the students, the anxiety of making sure that they have a lifeline to their students would be really important. And how are you dealing with that?
So our kids are able on these field trips in particular to still carry their phones with them. They're just not expected to take them out. So that still allows them to have access to their parents if necessary. I know that that's kind of one way for us to allow them to still have that connection to home. As far as the addiction part, we only had one extreme case where we had a student who really could not, but he had to check his phone in, and then at the end of every class, he wanted to come and check on his phone to make sure it was still there. And we worked with his counselor for that. As far as loneliness, we really haven't had students report to us specifically at our level for our school that concern. We offer, you asked about having opportunities for other things during lunch, for example. We do board games. How many kids do board games anymore? But to have them learn how to play a board game and do different things, Uno, whatever it might be, those are made available to them during that time. And on a personal note, I think every kid should have a flip phone and not a cell phone that's like this, because one of the biggest things we run into more than anything else is impulsivity. And when you have to think and hit the number 7 4 times before you can get to the letter S to say that your friend is a stinker, helps to slow things down. And I think parents are looking for that as well. But there are no other options. Flip phones are less expensive than a cell phone like this. So you got to think about that. And these are not cell phones, they're computing devices.
So I can say, Principal Nardi, we actually do board games at the high school level. We also do coloring, wellness activities during lunchtime. We have a variety of groups. We also have clubs. So for those students who are exhibiting some loneliness, and I haven't really had that, we know that. Like, we know our kids. Our teachers know our kids. And when we see that, we pull them in, right? And sometimes I'll pull them in and I'll just say, hey, just come over and talk with Principal Piles. I have one student who comes and he eats lunch right beside me while I'm monitoring the area. And that's fine, right? I connect him with other students. Sometimes he walks with those friends. Other times he does not. And she asked one more question. Immigration? Yeah, so I can say that during my expectations assembly, while outlining the expectations, I did share with students, if you have an emergency and you need to utilize your cell phone, we are flexible. It's called communication. That's what we do every day as adults. We're teaching them to be young adults. You go up to your teacher and you say, hey, I really need to contact my mom. May I step outside and use my cell phone? And teachers are very, very amenable to that. And you don't see it every day. Students don't abuse that opportunity. Our security team is walking around, so they're also monitoring so that they know what's going on with our students.
Thank you. Mr. Savannah.
I wanted to, before I go into any comments, I wanted to thank you guys for, you guys are very clear advocates for your students. And I think it shows in the way that you speak about them, the way that you speak about these policies, and just the care that you bring toward them. So I just want to say thank you for that first. I think one of the main things that I was kind of hearing from what you guys were saying was it's not necessarily the policy that's directly the issue, it's the implementation. So I wanted to ask, and then the consistency with the follow through, right? So making sure it's consistent across whichever level it is, so elementary, middle, and high school, and then just having it be very clear. Because from what I understand, this pilot, in the case of Pyle, didn't really do much more than what is listed in the current regulation. And in the case of Rockville, it was just that graduated discipline in terms of having the pouches. So I wanted to ask both of you guys directly, do you believe that the policy or the regulation needs to change, or do you think it's just mainly the implementation? And give you like maybe the opportunity to sort of speculate on that, because I just wanted to sort of hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think our policy, let me make sure I eliminate the Y there. So I think it is clear. One of the things that becomes a challenge for the middle schools is that when you looked at that chart, it was in the middle of the day, in between classes, and at lunch was yellow, right, for options. I feel everybody, if we're all consistent in what we do, like we say no at lunch. The issues I've had with some students are when they come from another school and come to my school. And all of a sudden they're walking in, they're like, well, wait, I can do, what do you mean you guys have a cell phone policy? What does that mean? So I think consistency was something we had heard across all schools. And that becomes part of the policy then, right? Where everybody's expected to follow that. I think consistency within schools to schools, it's up to us then at our building levels to make sure there's consistency, because then there's less confusion for our kids as to what the expectations are. And if we have a standard, we want to hold you to the standard. I look at it as a standard and an expectation rather than a rule.
Standard.
And I can agree with Principal Nardi. I can say at the high school level, our students have an opportunity. Some of our students stay in one comprehensive high school all day. Others come to one school. They pop over to Addison. Some go to early college. So at every single school that's, under the umbrella of Montgomery County Public Schools, for high school, I believe we should have just a consistent policy expectations, as Principal Nardi said, but also explaining to students, like, what does this look like when you get to MC? What's the difference? Are you utilizing your cell phones? Do you have more flexibility there? So I think it's really just the consistency across the county.
All right. I wanted to thank you both for your responses. They were really well thought out, and again, appreciate all your sort of feedback on this process. And again, what I found, just my final comment, but what I found really interesting was the sixth graders not having as much of an issue. And so what that kind of tells to me is like we need to start building strong foundations for our students, and because then the issue doesn't happen. And I also really appreciate the idea of bringing something else in to kind of fill that gap with the board games. I know in my elementary and middle school we did a lot of deer, so like drop everything and read. So that was always something that I enjoyed. But giving opportunities for that connection outside of the phone, I think is really, really important.
Okay. Ms. Silvestri?
Yeah, just a final comment. I think that this is super important work for the mental health and well-being and educational outcomes of our students. So thank you so much for that. And I think it's an opportunity for us to really rally our community. This is a community societal issue that we're taking on, but cell phone use doesn't end at the school bell. It goes on at home, late into the night, during mealtime. The Surgeon General has recommendations in terms of, no cell phone, social media in the schools, recommendations about when kids should have social media after middle school. And so I think we just really have to take this opportunity and really work with Health and Human Services, rally our parents so that we're all speaking with one voice. This is for the benefit of our students, and we have a great opportunity in our hands here to impact positive change for our community. Thank you.
Ms. Wolf?
Actually, I think my question has already been asked a couple of times in different ways, but it really was, are you seeing a need to change the policy or just the implementation of the policy? And whether or not we should be distinguishing between grade levels and whatever policy we do come up with. But I do have one other question, because I think you kind of answered that. Earbuds and headphones. Now, the elementary school kids use those things. So how are we going to take that into consideration? Because the numbers here, and it may just be the sample size, it looks awfully low for elementary school to me.
So I don't have a direct answer to your question, but we do use them. We use them as a part of the instructional program, actually, and some kids do bring their own, headphones for their testing, particularly when there's an auditory part to that testing. And they're allowed to do that for, sanitary purposes, what have you. So we do have that use going on, but I don't know that the elementary kids are actually bringing them to school at the same rate that our middle and high school kids are doing that.
Well, I think you're referring to Bluetooth, but I know at the elementary school where my grandchild went, they were asked to bring headphones for the Chromebooks.
Can I just add to your point about the headphones? So MCAP testing allows you to have headphones, but they have to be wired.
Right. Yes.
So you cannot have an AirPod.
Yes.
So it already eliminates that. So we do have some kids who have, if they have to use a Chromebook, they can bring their own headphones for their use in a classroom. But when you're walking the hallways and you got your AirPods in, I don't think you're doing anything instructionally. So that becomes part of the issue. But we do have a handful of kids who have noise canceling headphones. They are designated, they have passes in our school to at least identify why they have that.
Use.
My final question is back to you at the high school, Rashonda. When I asked about conflict, if you were seeing less conflict, have you done any analysis as to whether or not you see more conflict after lunch when they've been allowed to have the cell phones, or during lunch as opposed to before lunch when it's taken away? Because, I'm a big proponent of away all day. I don't care what level they're at. But I just want to know, are you seeing a difference when you give it back to them at lunchtime?
Okay, can I go back and answer the first one about the headphones first, and I'll go to that one. We do have a number of students who have IEPs, who also have accommodations to be able to utilize their headphones during their work time.
Sure.
Because it provides them, it calms down some anxiety. It gives them an opportunity to focus and not hear the distractions of others. But we know who those students are, and that's where it goes back to that teacher flexibility and understanding the expectations of the IEP. Okay, so that's the one piece. And then as far as the conflict is concerned, it typically happens early in the morning. At Rockville, we have not seen many students with I will tell you, if there's conflict, I don't see a lot of students running to it. So I don't see it popped up on social media. But you will see that. There are times where our students, again, don't use their cell phones. They are not digitally responsible. So that's a part of our expectation and what we're supposed to do to prepare our students. And we see a lot of that in 9th grade. See, the 10th graders, 9 and 10, 11th and 12th graders, by the time the students are there, they're a little more focused on the end game, the end goal. Our 9th graders come in, they're excited because in middle school, they weren't allowed to have those cell phones. They weren't allowed to walk around at lunch. So they run around and they jump on each other's backs and they're running around on the phones. But it hasn't been in a negative way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Montoya?
Thank you. I just wanted to echo first the thoughts of Ms. Zimmerman. Not all students are on their phones because they're avoiding their friends. Some students don't have friends. And I think that's just an unfortunate reality for some of our students at all grade levels. And I just want us to be mindful of that, because it's not like they're going to put their phone down and now their social world is wonderful and happy. And I know you guys do a lot of work in your school spaces to try to foster community and those social aspects, and I appreciate that, and I hear some of it here. But it's just something to keep in mind. So I just wanted to echo the thoughts, and I think Mr. Severna mentioned that as well, and that's how we got into the board games. And then also with the earbuds, and you kind of mentioned some students have IEPs, and that's fine. It's really loud in some of these school spaces, unfortunately, and that can be very jarring to some students, even if they don't have IEPs, or maybe they're not identified as needing these support systems. And I know for myself, sometimes I have little kids, sometimes I put the earbuds in and I'm just doing something else. I'm not even listening to music, but it muffles the sound a little bit. And so I just want us to be mindful of that as well. And then you might have students who don't have an IEP, but that could be helpful for them. And so to try to find a way that people know that that is an option, because again, when you have a few thousand students in your school, every little voice, right, reverberates. And kind of in line with things to be mindful of for all of us, and I would be remiss not to mention this because I do hear from my community about this, and we just had an incident yesterday. The reality of our school system across the nation, right, all of our schools, is that we have violent incidents sometimes, and we have lockdowns, and we have things in the community that cause our schools to have to be locked down or to be on alert. And as a parent of 2 MCPS students, that's a terrifying thing. I know parents whose students were in the school yesterday when it got locked down. And that is a very jarring experience for the families, for the students. Sometimes we don't hear about it until we hear about it first on social media, or we see other things and then you don't know. A lot of our students, we talk about the mental health of our students all the time, and the way that we need more support because our students are not necessarily in the best places mentally, social, emotionally. And so I do get concerned about, and I could ask for some clarification also, because every school I think might be a little different. So when we're talking about, okay, we don't want the phones on the desk, and I understand that. I don't think students need phones in instruction time, even lunchtime. So just so we're clear, I'm very much with you. But I get concerned about then if we have these issues, or unfortunately, sometimes students do get hurt by other students, and we unfortunately don't have always the number of adults that we need on campuses. And so there might be an adult that isn't alerted right away. And so when we talk about phones being away all day or being put in bags or iPhone watches, but there is something called school time, right, where you can shut those iPhone watches down and parents get notifications if it is turned on. But if we talk about putting these things away in a backpack, in a purse, whatever kind of bag you have, are students allowed to carry backpacks? Because I thought in some schools they can't, or is every school different? And I would just welcome some clarification from anyone about that. If students have their bags on them at every single school, then I think that's one thing. But I thought in some schools they're not allowed.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on schools. We don't have backpacks allowed just because of the size of our school, the number of kids that we have. The kids are allowed to carry their cell phones on them. So they can put it in a pocket. They can put it in their pencil pouch. So they still have access to it. They're encouraged to keep it in their locker. So they don't have backpacks necessarily for us. Other schools do. We see it as a safety issue. Also, when you get into a classroom, you can't have 35 backpacks in a room. You can't get out of the room. That becomes a different safety issue, right? Does that make sense?
I do. Yeah. I know that there are some students that might have items aside from an electronic device that they may need with them. And so that just brings me some other questions, but that's for another day.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart?
+1 on isolation, especially during lunch. I've had some experience with that with my own family, and it would have really been helpful if there were lunch bunches. So if you see the same kid isolated every day, and especially phone or no phone policy, like that, just hopefully we reach out to those kids and those families, say, hey, maybe is there something we can do to support this kid? And I know that lunch bunches have been pretty successful in the past. So +1 there. And then by the way, the year before COVID hit, my kid was in middle school and his phone was away in the locker all day. That was before COVID. In fact, the alarm went off every day and drove a whole class crazy. And so they had to go break into his locker. Well, not break into it, but security had to go take the phone away. So it's not something, there were still, especially middle school level, I think that there were restrictions earlier on, and we just got out of the habit because of COVID. But I think this is worth looking into, so thanks for for the information. I just wanted to have a little, give it some voice to those kids that might not be connecting in real life.
Yeah, we have gone 2 rounds, and my second comment is in Journal of American Medical Association, Pediatric, they published an article in December, and it was the first research that they didn't use self-reporting data. Instead, use a third-party app to monitor usage. what they found over 4 months period of time, the students' phone usage is way greater than the transition time or lunchtime combined. Students are going on their phone during the 7-hour school days, way more than the transition time and the lunchtime, which shows that the students are using it during instructional times. And the most popular apps, top 4, won't surprise you. It's text messaging, it is Instagram, it is video streaming, and it is audio. And when I talk to the Rockville students, they honestly tell me if they really say what the communication that they do on their phone, what's really for communication, is 5% of the time. The rest of the time are chatting or taunting each other, right? So I'm wondering, why we strive to have kids develop good habits and self-control, that we know that when we try to teach kids good eating habits, we don't surround them by junk food, right? And we say, oh, it starts at a grocery store, or it starts at whatever. We don't surround them with slushy machines and then say, okay, control yourself, you know? And so we are the adults in the room, okay? And you all have shared that when we act, students benefit. Staff benefit because they can instruct better. So I feel we need to act with common sense and urgency. And that's my comment for today. Now, safety is brought up as an issue. My question to you is, elementary school students don't have cell phones. So when it's a safety incident, what do schools do? How do parents communicate with their child when there's a safety issue at the elementary school level?
They call the school, or there's school communication.
Okay, thank you.
How about later on?
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Stefano.
Yes, thank you. So my final second round comment, I did, again, go back and say thank you one more time, but wanted to go back and highlight some of the things that if we are, adjusting the regulation or the policy, that I thought was some big takeaways from this discussion here today. Number one was like the communication and safety, which I actually don't think is necessarily goes into the policy. That's more just the standard operating procedure of it. I think that's a really big thing, right? If we go back and we look at the number of families who knew about the policy versus the number of staff who knew about the policy, those are very different numbers, right? I think like getting those numbers up, like Principal Piles and Principal Nardi said, is going to be critical toward making sure that we have, a general consensus around the policy. The other thing that I thought was implementation that's equitable and fair, graduated and progressive discipline, and then just really, again, making sure that we're starting with those strong foundations. And I did really appreciate the examples of graduated discipline that were given out. And then kind of going back to the idea of phone pouches, I just want to say, let's be very, cautious with how we spend the money on that. I mean, with 1,000 pouches, and then I think the number that we referenced was, and I understand it's a pilot, so you never know, right? But with 1,000 pouches, and we're talking about 139 students who were pouched, right, so to speak. So how can we maybe start to spread those out around? And I was just going to ask as my final question, do we have the total number on the cost of the pouches plus the magnets to unlock? And if the magnets are more expensive, because we obviously already have a surplus of the pouches, right? What would that sort of implementation cost look like? Because I think that's a really big concern, especially in a tough budget year.
So I can get you the number that we've spent so far, and I can follow up with that number specifically. But when you buy 5 pouches, you get a magnet with them. So it's included as part of the bundle. The other strategy, though, that I want to highlight that many of our high schools are using, actually all of our high schools that are implementing this are using, are the caddies, which for those of us that have been around for a while, they are the old calculator pouches that have 24 or 32 or 35 25 small little plastic holders with numbers on them. Many teachers have, or schools have used funding to purchase some chargers to go, not all 30 have them, but some chargers to sort of incentivize this notion that as students come into the classroom, they are to put their phone into their numbered pouch. That means their phone is visible to them. It's still, they can see it, but nobody's touching it because it's at the front of the room or hanging over the door. And I think that goes to the earlier question also around safety and availability, that phone is available. It's not carried in a backpack that may introduce other issues, but it is there in case somebody would need it or to leave early or something like that. Those are about $24 per classroom, and those also would fall into the instructional materials monies. We have not purchased those centrally to provide, but schools have used their instructional materials monies to purchase those for teacher classrooms, and that's something that we could look at as well.
Yeah, I know my psychology teacher uses those caddies, so pretty effective. And then yeah, thank you so much for those answers.
Thank you, everyone, for this conversation. And we're going to move to our next item. So thank you so much. Our next item is... No. It's discussion item. Yeah, thank you. Okay, it's item number 8 is for information only. And item number 9.1 to 9.4 is Board of Education items. May I have a motion to move item number 9.1 and item 9.2 in block?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Item 9.3 is the previous new business, and I see we have an audience here, member here, and this is the resolution that was put on the table to dedicate the ballroom here at 15 West Goody Drive in honor of Patricia Pat O'Neill, a 23-year member of the Montgomery County Board of Education. Now, I occupy this District 3 seat that Pat used to serve. She was a thoughtful, dedicated public official who ensured that school systems leadership, governors, and decision-making were guided by Montgomery County values, particularly the commitment to increase access and opportunity for all students. I want to point out, I want to give a shout out to her husband, Rick, who's sitting right here. Rick, can you stand up to be recognized? Thank you for your many years of being a great support for our county public school system.
Thank you all very much appreciate our family. And I know Pat would be very honored. I would just say, the one thing I would say, she was a consummate public servant, as are all of you. This is a job that you don't go into with the idea of making millions or otherwise doing whatever, but you affect so many people, including my daughters, many of our family members. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask, as president of the board, I cannot make any motion, so I'm asked board member Wolf to read the resolve part of the resolution.
And I'm honored to be able to do this and glad to see you here, Rick. I want to tell a little story first about Pat, and I tell this story all the time. You know, she had called me right before she passed, and I returned her call because we used to talk every morning around 7:30. She talked to Judy Docker first around 7, and then she would call me. But after she passed, the next day the phone rings, and the thing says, Pat O'Neill. And I said, oh my God, she's calling from heaven. And I think about that all the time because I do think about the mentorship she provided me. So I'm honored to be able to do this. So whereas Mrs. Patricia O'Neill devoted her life's work to public education, having served on the Montgomery County Board of Education for 23 years, the longest in Montgomery County Public Schools history. She served as the board's president 5 times and as vice president 6 times. And whereas Ms. Patricia O'Neill represented the students and school system of Montgomery County in many critical positions, including as past president to the Maryland Association of Boards of Education and past co-chair of the Washington Area Boards of Education. And whereas Mrs. Patricia O'Neill led the board's Policy Management Committee for many years, ensuring that the system's core values were embedded in its policy, she was instrumental in numerous transformative policy decisions, particularly codifying the school system's commitment to increasing access and opportunity for all students. Whereas Mrs. Patricia O'Neill served on numerous state-level advisory committees, including the Maryland Blue Ribbon Panel on Teen Pregnancy, the Maryland Comparable Task Force, and the Task Force for School Safety. Whereas Mrs. Patricia O'Neill was dedicated to the students and families of Montgomery County, standing for the values of equity, respect, relationship, learning, and excellence. And whereas Mrs. Patricia O'Neill earned numerous awards, including being named as the 100 Most Powerful Women by the Washingtonian Magazine, and whereas Mrs. Patricia O'Neill served as the vice chair for the MCPS Educational Foundation and was a member of the foundation's grant committee, and whereas Mrs. Patricia O'Neill believed in the importance of board governance work and the board's vital role in MCPS's success, and whereas Mrs. Patricia O'Neill left a lasting legacy of service with grace, leadership with purpose, and commitment to community, resolved that the Board of Education hereby names the boardroom at 15 West Goody Drive the Patricia O'Neill Board of Education Room, and be it further resolved that the Patricia O'Neill Board of Education Room serve as a place for the Board of Education and the Montgomery County community to engage in the work of providing each and every student in MCPS with the education they need to thrive in their future.
May I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous with those present. Right. So thank you, everyone. Oh, Grace is there. Grace.
Yeah,
She raised her hand. Now I can see you. All right. It's unanimous with the whole board. Okay. So we are very honored.
Mike.
We are very honored, Rick, to continue to undertake this important work of board governors in now what we will call the Pat O'Neill Board of Education room.
Well, thank you very much. I used to say that the time she spent over at Carver in the auditorium, they should have been charging her rent. And I'm sure it's true with all of you also. So thank you again very much. Our family, very honored, and I know Pat would be thrilled. She just loved what she did, never looked at it as a job, always looked at it just as a real opportunity. So again, thank you all very much. Really appreciate it. And she, you know, Lori Christina, she loved the staff. Oh my God. She just couldn't survive without the staff. So thank you all very much. Really appreciate it.
So we will have more information regarding a formal dedication event later this spring. We will communicate that out to the community, all right? So with that, I'm turning to item 9.4, which is, are there any additional new business? No? All right. Then going to 10.1 to 10.3 is information summaries, and no action is required of the board at the moment. And number 11, item number 11 is adjournment. May I have a motion?
Over half an hour later, move for adjournment.
second.
All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Good night.